Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer, and today we're going to be talking about Paper Tigers by Lou Aguilar. And consider this less of a book and more of a political diatribe. If you are more conservative leaning and you are not chill with your beliefs being criticized and mocked in some cases, then this is not going to be the video for you because we will be mocking, because this is less a fiction book and more a personal, sexual, and political fantasy it comes off as. And I'm also going to, I don't really care how other readers feel about stuff generally, but I think that it's important to look at how others have reviewed this book on Amazon in order to understand like what it is trying to do and how it is not actually a fiction novel. It is just mind fighting a straw man of what certain type of conservative believes that left-leaning people believe, and where they get their feedback or ideas of what more liberal-minded people think is from other conservatives who just hate you if you're liberal-minded. So this isn't a comment against all conservatives, so don't get your panties in a twist. It happens every time. I criticize bad left-leaning politics and it's whatever, and I criticize bad right-leaning politics and then right-wing people come after me. And it's just like, I mean, I'm not saying left-wing people haven't come after me before for some of my videos, but like, you look to the Shad videos specifically, or the critical drinker ones, and they are the ones saying that I'm a man and will never be a woman. And there are some other people, but there is a difference between the type of outrage I receive depending on if somebody's political leaning. Just know, if you write crappy books that are a political diatribe, and then sell it as fiction, I'm coming after you because this is not what it is for. And you should be ashamed of this. Anyway, before we get into that, though, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lemoy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and then the first Monday video of the month, we bask in your creativity. The second way to be featured is the Monday feature, where if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out, if you submit the first chapter and the cover, that chapter will be read here with no opinion instituted on top of it, just your time to show off, and hopefully that'll help more readers find your work. The third way is my new series, Crit This, where if you have an unpublished book that you would like feedback on here on the channel, submit it. Follow the rules. You can do short fiction, long fiction, non-fiction. Go for it, not poetry, because poetry is a different skill set altogether. Nothing against the poets. I just don't have that skill set. So, but there is that. And yeah, the third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books. Grade me against what I'm about to say here. Is my opinion worth anything? Not really, but I didn't start this channel because my opinion's worth anything. I started this channel just to talk about my opinion. And, well, now if you've clicked this video, you're subjected to it. So, hi. With that said, let's get into this. And first, we're going to look at some of the reviews on Amazon for this book, though, so you can get an idea of how we're supposed to be approaching the content of this book, because I do think it is important. So not every book that contains political ideas is trying to persuade you or specifically be political, because you can write including political elements without trying to persuade people. You can be writing about just reality without trying to persuade people in any specific way. But then books we know and movies and art in general can also be commandeered for political racketeering. And I've seen a bunch of people in the last long while. I mean, it's been a thing for a very long time, but a bunch of people getting into the arts that weren't into the arts because they repeat the phrase, culture is downstream from the arts. And so now they think that if they jump into it, they can put their beliefs into fiction and then just convert the masses to agree with them because they can write themselves beating the bad guys, which are the guys that disagree with them. Yeah. So I do think it is important for pieces like this to see how it is not a fiction novel that is exploring ideas and presenting various scenarios meant to create empathy, but it is really just to create straw men to smack down and say how good the author's opinions are. And a second thing that makes me believe that this is a self-insert author fantasy, aside from Nick gets everything that he could possibly want, and including the girl and the job at the end, despite doing nothing to deserve either of them. But also because the author put in their bio at the end that they worked at Washington Post, and this story also takes place with characters who get jobs at the Washington Post. So not every single time a book contains elements that are familiar to the author it's not a self-insert fantasy, but the question becomes, does the world like shape around that character? And the answer in this book is yes. But I will be looking forward to your guys' thoughts. If you have a conservative politics bingo card, this would be your time to get it out to see what you would think would be in it. This book was published in 2018, and it is a lot of the 2010s politics. You're going to have college campus stuff going on in here too. It was a pain. I had the last 30 pages of this book left, and I was just like, end me. Please end me. But let's look at some of these comments before we get too much into this. Right. So what does it take to make a career in journalism nowadays? The media is saturated with stories of dubious credibility, and the reader is jaded, overstimulated, and polarized. There's very little place for idealism and personal expression. The young copyiers at Washington Post are up to the challenge. The author introduces us to an ensemble cast of 20-somethings. The focus is on Nick, whose conservative views make him a bit of an oddity in the oasis of liberalism, and his colleague slash love interest, Laura, an entitled feminist. Laura thinks of herself as a free thinker, but in reality, all of her strong opinions are just canned slogans. Funny it should say that, because that's all that freaking Nick does. She comes with a whole bouquet of liberal beliefs, vehemently pro-abortion and self-acclaimed atheist, though on one occasion she calls herself an agnostic. There are some weird choices about freaking Laura. We are talking about someone who champions other women's uteri and nipples, yet tolerates abuse from her own boyfriend, Phil, justifying his behavior. She praises a new man archetype, metrosexual, submissive beta male, yet she is drawn to Nick's cowboy demeanor. That's an odd choice, since her own boyfriend isn't even that archetype, so I don't know what it is. It's just another insult at people not like Nick from Wyoming. For a liberated woman who is free to pick her own sexual partner, she puts too much stock into other women's approval of her relationship. Like most empowered women, Laura is deeply insecure and conflicted underneath the veneer of girl power, the proverbial shoemaker without shoes. Personally, I found it a bit surprising that Nick, so blunt and genuine, would take serious romantic interest in Laura, even though the author suggests otherwise. I personally see Nick's pursuit of Laura as a social experiment. He wants to see if flexing his Prince Charming muscle will break Laura's defenses. When push comes to shove, he puts his journalism career first and makes rather bold moves to make a headline splash, knowing that it will not score him any points with Laura. It's pretty obvious that their relationship is doomed despite the physical attraction. Opposites may attract short term, but they don't form lifelong matches. So one of the things with this, I need to know where his Prince Charming muscles actually are, because there are none in here. The whole thing is about, it starts with his interest in Laura's ass and ends with him saying, I'm going to miss looking at her ass. Like, he doesn't care about her at all. She is just the hottest piece of hot that he has ever seen, and it says it every time she's described. So I don't know. But then you've also got this right here that leads with whether you watch Fox News or CNN, and then it just straight up insults anybody who is not Nick-minded this entire time, and that's what I'm talking about here. And you have another one here. Whichever side of the politicized fence you're on, unless you're oversensitive to others' viewpoints and can't bear to hear or read it, this story transcends prejudices. It's also full of romance and sexual situations. So again, it's somebody saying, hey, your politics don't matter, but it's also just the entire book is just insulting liberals, and so obviously they don't really care. Rather than this being a book that invites people to understand different perspectives, these more feel like lies meant to trick people into reading it, whom the book is openly insulting. And it's either done maliciously because they want to hurt people as they feel hurt, or, because I don't think everybody is malicious, they are really so far in an echo chamber that they don't see how insulting this is, how disrespectful it is, and how it's not actually compassionate in any way. You'll see what I'm talking about, and I'll look forward to your guys' opinions on this story. It is so poorly crafted, and it's actually disgusting, and that's not me being oversensitive to other people's viewpoints, because I expose myself to a lot of things, all right? I look at a lot of types of extreme opinions and insulting opinions just so I can see the mechanisms behind what people are thinking and how people think and the extremes of everything. And it's not oversensitive to actually just call this and Nick a piece of shit. Like, I'm sorry. I have to be blunt with this. Here's another one. Well-written novel for readers of any political persuasion. Fast-paced, intriguing read for watchers of both Fox News listeners and NPR and listeners of NPR. Right-wingers will nod at every word the protagonist Nick has to say. Left-wingers will get valuable insight. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. I guess it is helpful. Into the insights of how opposition thinks. And this is what I want you to remember as we read through this book, is that this person believes that this is a good representation of what conservatives believe, that they are confident in nodding, saying that all right-wingers are nodding at listening to this, and that left-wingers will get valuable insight into the opposition. Now, I do think you get valuable insight into how people like Nick and probably the author think, not to project author on character, but I'm fairly certain that they are very closely related at the very least. And I'm saying that personally as a personal assessment, but do remember that people who agree with the politics of this book nod their head. Some of them. Again, we're not putting all people that call themselves conservatives in a breadbasket with this. But just remember, if you're a conservative, if there are things in here that you disagree with, this is what many are saying are representative. And I want that to be considered with the approach towards those of more liberal persuasions and the sorts of generalizations that are made in the opposite direction. And instead of being like, everybody is this extreme or that extreme, open your mind that not everybody falls into these categories of extremism that is presented in this. And just because they don't agree with you on something doesn't mean that they are a bad person, because that is often what happens in these situations that makes something so hyper-polarized. Anyway, now that I got that out of the way, a little bit more background. This book was sent to me a couple of years back by a friend of mine, so I'm finally getting around to read it. Political books are not really my favorite, if that's not obvious, as talking about politics is also not my favorite. That's kind of a way to melt humans and human opinion and human life down into politically painted argument that just turns people into pawns in order to argue for power, and makes people fight each other when we should really in general be looking at the betterment of people in general and our neighbors, and not fighting each other over assuming people are being malicious. As far as I'm concerned, with my observations of things, whenever you start introducing stuff as politics, then it just starts to get battling of like who wins and who loses, and people not wanting to lose, so they'll go to an extreme. However, we should just be caring about people, and we don't have all of the answers, and it's better to come to discussion with an open mind and an open heart, that people are going to come to a discussion with different perspectives, experiences, and thoughts on how to work through a problem. And you're going to get more issues if you believe that somebody is disagreeing with you because they hate you, or they're just plain evil. When in reality, most of us are trying to do the same thing, which is make the world a better place, care for each other, care for our neighbors, care for our families. And so this does not help that. And never does politics. So instead, I like to focus on the human story and just not deal with politics ever. Ugh. But yeah, so going into this, my assessment is it is a sexual fantasy, a conservative fantasy of pawning the libs entirely, because they can't do it in real life. And so you let me know what your thoughts are as we go through this. Yeah, there's going to be a lot to discuss in here, especially if this leans into your politics. So with that said, let's get into the actual synopsis. And the first page provides, quote, Nick Jarrett stood on the north end of Franklin Park looking across K Street at the Washington Post building. The iconic masthead spanned the 12-story white facade as if in defiance of the internet forces besieging it. With newspapers dying all over, the Post had lost much of its muscle, but it still packed a mean punch. Nick hoped to leave a mark of his own someday, so 5 months out of the University of Wyoming on a cold, bright mid-October Monday morning, and he was ready to start his first day day as a Washington Post copy boy, now politically corrected into copy aide. A red torpedo entered his right periphery. It became a dynamic young woman in a maroon coat striding towards the building entrance. Even across the street, Nick could discern her striking beauty. August face, mopped by thick black hair, fierce eyes, round hips, and firm legs powering gray slacks. Nick dashed across the street to reach the glass door ahead of the girl. He opened it and held it open for her. She frowned for a second, gave him a curt nod, and went inside. Nick admired her backside all the way to the security desk, where she spoke to the black female guard in a refined, breathy voice. "Hello, I'm Laura London, new copy aide." Nick smiled. Some political correctness was all right by him. "Newsroom, 7th floor." "Thank you." Laura proceeded toward the elevators. "Same deal," Nick said to the guard. "Follow her." "My pleasure." He joined Laura to the elevator row. She barely looked at him despite her piercing brown eyes. What does looking at him have to do with how piercing her eyes are? Sorry. He smiled at her anyway. "Fellow copy aide," he said, tapping his chest. "Where are you from?" "Boston." "Spencer." "Is that your name?" "No, a Boston private detective created by Robert Parker," said Nick. "I'm a mystery buff. I like to match each city with a resident sleuth." "Detroit." "Amos Walker." "Bombay." Sartaj Singh." "Where does V.I. Warshaki live?" "Beats me. She's for girls." So this is obviously leaning into the romance angle almost immediately, where it's doing lovers to hate, or where it's doing enemies to lovers. And I mean, he's also, from the first moment that he sees her, I was not joking, the first thing he noticed about her is her ass, and the only thing he talks about missing of her when he betrays her is her ass. You'll see when we get there, I've got those quotes lined up as well. But that's all that really matters. It's also very clear that this is political, with political language like political correctness being mentioned 2 times on the first page. So it's going to be very heavy in the story. This is already coming off as someone engaging in too much political podcasting and discussion that it's actually written over their brain. And so it has to get shoved into everything that they do. And they can't just have a normal conversation. Not that different from stuff like The Hate You Give, if you ask me. Then they're going to the 7th floor together, and it tells us that Nick is a hottie McHot man in a leather jacket, and they do some arguing. Quote, "So who's your home sleuth, Wyatt Earp?" "My town's too small," said Nick. "Medicine Bow, Wyoming." "Do women vote there?" "Sure, after they've made supper. It's not so bad. Nice place to raise kids." "But not their consciousness." "We can always use a new schoolmarm." They get to the copy aid room, where a few others are standing around looking at newspapers. The 2 guys in the room are talking about Sports Page, which gets Laura going. Quote, "Did you know that the women's basketball team at Old Dominion won more games than the men's? And when their coach demanded equal pay, they fired her." "Probably for being dumb," Nick said. Laura glared at Nick, all other eyes focused on the 2 newcomers. "Dumb?" she said challengingly. "Yeah, that coach was lucky to have a job. Chick teams are a luxury for any college and a deficit. It's guys' sports that rake in the dough." "So it's all about money?" Laura asked Nick. "You bet. If that lady was coaching the men's team, she'd deserve equal pay." "More," Jock said. "I'd like to see women giving LeBron shit." He mimicked a shrill female voice. "You'd best make the next foul shot, Baldy." Laura fixated on Nick. "Do you have a problem with strong women?" "No. I like Laura Croft. The Angelina Jolie incarnation, of course." It's so annoying, and personally, it feels like it's just what the author wanted to say or wish he had said in some Twitter fights that he had had. That's the feeling that I get. Everyone is then told that they can't be promoted to reporter from Gopher here because the Washington Post just doesn't do that anymore. But at least your internship here will make good padding for your resume, so then you can apply for other jobs at other newspapers and say, hey, you did this. Now you go get your press cards and go to the areas that you want to work in. You're not going to get any credit for what you do here, but who cares? Which is also not true, because they do get their names on the stuff that they publish. And you would have thought, like, they're supposed to be gophers, but they're constantly being sent to go and do reporting jobs. So I'm actually kind of confused as to what this job was supposed to be, because Nick publishes a lot of pieces and Laura publishes a couple of pieces, and they get sent to concerts to do concert pieces on the music side of things. So it's just like they all go to their respective areas. We get Mike staring at Sarah's butt in the mail room. Mike he's got a girlfriend. Oh my gosh, he has a girlfriend. So like I said, I don't know if I said this already. It's going to pop up in my comments somewhere. Every male character in this book is a sleazebag, regardless of political beliefs. You watch the male characters in this. So Mike is a sports guy, sports reporter, and he has a girlfriend that he is going to describe later as she is smart, she is beautiful, she has a huge heart, she stayed with him as he was having mental breakdowns, but he just can't be with her because she is going to school to become a lawyer and she's going to make more money than him. So that's Mike. He's got a long-term girlfriend that he hasn't told he's not serious with yet because she makes more money than him, but he's staring at Sarah's butt. Sarah is a lesbian. Then you have Tammy, who is blonde hair, big busted woman who's going to work in music. Then you have Hugh, who is a playboy and a womanizer. And then you have Warren, who is kind of more sentimental. So those are the people that we've got going on. I'm kind of surprised that Mike is the one staring at Sarah's butt and not Hugh, but I don't know if the author just forgot that. Anyway, Tammy is going into the fashion section and immediately she is trying to flirt with her new boss, though he's not responding to it. And so she pouts, only to see an image of a man on her desk and discover that he is both gay and married. And it's like, you're an intern, you just started this job, and you're already acting sexually inappropriate towards your boss before you even get any hint of how the culture of this place is. What? A couple of things here also annoy me, and that's that there is no character interaction at all. It's just the narrator going immediately to slur this woman into a stereotype of flirting on her first day of the job, and also the only way that this guy wouldn't respond to her was that he is gay. If he was not gay, it's implying that he would have gone for it immediately, because to this book, all men are dogs. So a straight guy wouldn't say no, even if it was inappropriate? Of course not. The book comes off as looking like it thinks so poorly of those not politically right-wing enough, and I don't know if it realizes just how it is showing men and women and what a low opinion it has of everybody. Which also, a complaint of mine is, why should anybody listen to somebody who is misanthropic about their opinions on how to make society better? Because you don't like people. So who cares? That's my question. Laura is introduced to the head of her department, Todd Armstrong, who thinks that she is so freaking gorgeous that he invites her to the White House dinner party on her first night, mind you, saying that he needs a sophisticated date that isn't his wife. She says that she's got a partner and she can't do that. He says, "Don't you want a career in newspaper writing, though? Think about it." I get if he is supposed to be sleazy, but I would hope that the author would at least be a little bit more tactful and not so direct with sexual abuse in the workplace or quid pro quo, especially when you have interns coming in. Like, this is the first day, and it is just, date me, don't you want a job? Maybe we can do this a little better than that, you know? But it's about making a point, not telling a story that is believable. Somehow I'm surprised that Laura doesn't immediately report that to somebody, because she's supposed to be some sort of feminist, and she doesn't report sexual advances in the workplace when it's inappropriate. Nick whistles when Laura is around. Other copy aide, Sarah, decides to tell Laura that that could be considered sexual harassment, and Laura is like, what? It was just whistling. So Laura responds to the whistling could be sexual harassment, but doesn't respond to the freaking dude saying that she can only have a job, a career in this if she is a date for him to business stuff. Sarah then offers that they watch each other's back, both of them being women, and then acts like she won't have any problems. She actually doesn't need her back watched because she is a lesbian, which means she won't have difficulty with sleazy guys. Yeah, that is what it implies. Nick then goes to the cafeteria and is flagged over by everyone but Laura, who is sitting in a table by herself reading The Great Gatsby, which is ironic since that's a book that has been in dispute as to whether it should even be read in schools or not, because a lot of conservatives freaking hate that book. And I saw the conversation about how that book ruined their enjoyment of reading, or was part of their ruined enjoyment of reading. Anyway, we get this bizarre exchange when he sits down with the others, quote, "How about you, Tammy? Any luck with the fashion desk?" I had a small setback. The editor's gay. Small? He's still a man, Tammy said, with an impish smile, and all men like Marilyn Monroe. Why, thank you, Nick, Tammy said. Meantime, it's back to the mailroom for me. She stood up, and then so did Warren. So this is suggesting that it's normal to use your body to get places, particularly if you're a woman, because that's the only way that you can have a job, not any skills. And you're not expected to work, just use your body to get anywhere. Everyone expects you to sleep your way forward. But then it's also got the suggestion that if you're hot enough, then you can make a gay married man straight, because being a big breasted blonde woman is apparently all it takes to convert somebody's sexuality. The ignorance is astonishing. And like, Nick is allowed to be ignorant as his character. Totally fine. And I'm not against characters being ignorant and stupid. And then, maybe going through character growth eventually. You can have a positive character. And I never want to mark that off, which is one of the reasons why I'm like, I need to finish stories to see like what is done with the characters and how the characters' flaws are shown later in the book versus how they're shown early in the book. And I don't think that this is a flaw. I think that this is a personal belief, because you also later have Sarah, who is a lesbian, giving into Hugh, asking or showing interest in Hugh, as she'll have a threesome with him when she's a lesbian. So to me, it more comes off as reading a disbelief in sexuality and that you are only gay because you haven't met the right one yet. But that's just how it comes off to me. This is pretty much the only conversation that they have before Nick gets up to go and sit with Laura and then talk to her and tell her that they will be working together since they're in the same department, so they better become friendly. And she's like, no, we actually don't have to be friendly. We don't have to like each other. We don't even have to interact with each other. There are other people who work in our department, which is true. You don't have to like each other. You don't have to be friends. You just have to be professional when you're at work. But Nick is over here eyeballing how gorgeous he thinks Laura is since the moment that he saw her. And I don't blame her for not wanting anything to do with him. He is probably sitting there eyeball fucking her while they're talking, because it's been what he's been doing every time he's been in the room with her anyways. The dude then says that his favorite book is The Great Gatsby, and Laura is surprised, says that it's about a stalker and male sexual obsession. And Nick is like, oh my gosh, you just turned one of America's greatest love stories into a feminist nutshell. He also finds out that Laura has a boyfriend and is inside big mad because he thinks that it has ruined his shot with getting with that booty. The boyfriend works for a senator in Connecticut, and that senator is somebody that, of course, Nick hates, because there is nothing that Nick likes about Laura but her booty. This turns into more strawman bickering, of course. Quote, "You have a problem with the senator from Connecticut?" Laura asked. "You want my top 10? Make it 2, and don't count the Potomac stripper incident. That was 4 years ago. Okay, said Nick, blocking the best Supreme Court nominee that we had in years and voting against every weapon system since the catapult. Someone has to hold back the right-wing hordes. That was my 3rd objection. Laura shook her head. Why are you here, Montana? Wyoming. All those red states look alike to me. Stoplight to progressives' insanity, Nick said. But I was a history major, so I... Live in the past? No. I learned from it. Unlike your crew, and I want to chronicle history as it's happening. What's your reason? Nick again says that she is so beautiful that she could be on TV, so why should she choose newspaper? She says that she wants to be read, not gawked at. She wants it to be about her skills and her abilities, not what she looks like. And he goes, hey girl, I'd read you. I do read you. Proving that Nick doesn't get it at all. She says she wants to be acknowledged for her skills, and all he does in response is to check her out more. Even from this first meeting her, where he's said some political correctness is good because he gets to work with somebody beautiful like this for a diversity hire, he doesn't expect her to have skills, he doesn't respect her, and he only sees her there because of her body and her sex, not because she actually has skills. This doesn't change about Nick, by the way. You would think that maybe this book would have him grow as a person, but it doesn't, because it thinks that everything that he does is correct and that his opinion is correct. And that's something that I at least held out for the entirety of the book, to see if he would gain some perspective from Laura, if he would soften, if he would see some of the ways in which he was incorrect, and then adjust and be like, oh, like he doesn't have to change his character entirely. He can still be a jackass, but at least a jackass with a little bit extra perspective. But no, he just thinks that he is right the entire time, and he is going to continue to think that he is right the entire time because he betrays the girl, sleeps with other people, and Laura still comes crawling back to him and says, I love you, when he refuses to say it back to her. We'll get there. There's a lot to go through here. We'll get there. So they've been around each other for a day, and there's just too much lust to handle, quote. That evening, Nick and Laura handled the last crate of mail. They'd exchanged few words since after lunch, but none of them snippy. Nick twice spied Laura looking enigmatically at him across the mail table. Her expression made his heart beat faster. He believed that she could crack it with little efforts to diffuse her power over him. He looked back at her with forced nonchalance, but circling close behind her at one point, he caught a whiff of her perfume and stifled a gasp. He always thought perfume a female extravagance like jewelry, but the sweet scent of it on Laura's neck captivated another of his senses. It took him a moment to see the envelope that she held, strewn with exotic stamps addressed in cursive lettering to the foreign desk. The two of them talk about books for a bit, and then Laura is going to say something, calls him endearing, and says, if only you could, before the two of them are interrupted, so she doesn't get to finish her sentence. I guess this whole thing of her having a partner is out the window because it really doesn't matter, and it's just another way to like try to flex on the left wing, it feels like, by just having Nick swoop in and then disgrace against somebody else's partner the entire time, which I also do not understand as a conservative leaning thing of you are cool with cheating on the partner, of like sleeping with her while she is still in that relationship and she doesn't break up with him because it's just cucking him. That's what it is. It pisses me off so much with just how little respect there is in this book for literally anybody. The world entirely revolves around Nick, and he'll say that everything that he does is moral and better and the way that things should be. And for the most part, her partner could just not exist. Like, he doesn't play any part in this except to give Nick another punching bag. He does not play a part in the story. So everyone goes home for the day. Sarah is out running and thinking about Laura, quote, Nick's mind was not the only one on Laura London that night. Sarah Woronov also thought of her while jogging south on Buckman Road in Old Town Alexandria. She wore a gray sweatshirt, green sweatpants, Nike running shoes, wool gloves, and her auburn hair in a ponytail behind earbuds playing EDM. The final stretch of the 3-mile run past small old houses with enough streetlight for safety. Additional security came from her athletic body, evident from her powerful strides. She realized that she would have to seduce Laura. She'd done it before, turned straight women into satiable lovers, her current roommate being her latest. Allison had been easy to convert, having been taught at George Mason University that heterosexuality was akin to white privilege. Of course, it helped to be attractive, which Sarah knew that she was, to both sexes. But Laura's high sophistication would be a challenge. If in the Trojan War against men, Laura was Athena to her Artemis, Sarah wanted her to be her Aphrodite too. It's not even funny how offensive this actually is. Of course Laura is going to get hit on by everyone in the office. And I mean, hey, let's see if the author uses that to, have a theme in the story about Laura being seen as a person with abilities and not just an object to be used and stared at and won by all of these people. But right now we've got Tammy being predatory towards the man who runs her office, Sarah being predatory towards straight women, Nick being predatory towards everybody, Mike being predatory towards everybody. Laura gets home to her converted roommate Allison and breaks up with her. Allison loses her mind. Hopefully, you have a different living situation to be in. This partner situation also didn't seem necessary. It was just used to be like, yeah, women's sexualities aren't real. They're kind of just there to be manipulated by whoever comes along, because that's what Sarah is going to try to do to Laura, has done to Allison, and then Sarah's sexuality changes when Hugh hits on her later. So like, it just is saying that women are malleable and sexual predators. So we then switch over to intern Mike to get more political talking points. Quote, he remembered his childhood thrill. In fact, the whole communities at the election of the first black president. But the hope that he had placed on him for a better, safer environment and racial healing had eroded over 8 years of the man's standard liberal agenda. Mike could name 2 offenses that affected him personally. He had eliminated the DC private school voucher system right before Mike's kid sister and brother could access it, trapping them in an inept school. He backed the racist anti-police protest movement born of a lie which resulted in less aggressive policing, fewer local businesses, and more crime in the streets. This section just feels like, so Mike is my black friend, and he's going to validate all of my opinions, and you gotta listen to him now because he's black. I do feel like he was created to be a token conservative black man to fight against whatever those are. And Ben Shapiro did the same thing in his book, which I read here on the channel if you want to go check that out. So Mike is asked by his dad if he is still hanging out with one of his friends from high school and is told, good. I'm glad that you're not hanging out with that kid anymore because that kid was bad news on a bad track and you were on a good track. Dad also corrects Mike's language to be more proper because Mike was speaking in a more informal way. Nick on his way home goes to a church that's also a restaurant run by immigrants and talks to the pastor of the place, who would make a great story for how talented the people at this place are because they're making food, they're performing, they're storytellers. And so he asks the pastor if he can interview people to talk about them in the newspaper to shed some light on immigrants in the city, and he promises to use fake names and not get any of the illegal immigrants that are there into trouble. He then goes home. Laura at her house is thinking about the White House party that she is not at, thinking, quote, then, with a sexist president ogling her, she would have lauded the historical candidate he beat. Probably not, even if her last dream had been crushed on election night. Instead of the first woman president, they were stuck with a swaggering alpha male like Nick Jarrett. I can't not laugh whenever alpha male is used unironically. Don't worry, though. She is also with her boyfriend as she is hotly daydreaming about this new coworker that she has, and I will never understand the interest or sexual attraction people have to cheating and infidelity storylines, but, you know, this book just had to put Laura in a relationship with a liberal-leaning man to make another political statement against Nick's rugged alpha maleness. It also doesn't look that great when Nick is just like, I'm gonna cuck the shit out of that guy. She then complains to her partner, Phil, about how bad her day at work was, quote, now, what was so hard about today, sweet pea? Phil asked when they broke off the kiss. Another copy aide was getting on my nerves. Talk about a cigarette ad. He's like the goddamn Marlboro man. It's pathetic some deluded women ever saw him as a sex symbol, said Phil. Laura cast down her eyes. Forget it, honey, Phil said. Soon his type will be as extinct as he is. Laura's face took on a malevolent smile. Nick's at work thinking of what Laura's sexual time with Todd Armstrong must have been like because somehow he also knew about Armstrong hitting on her and saying, hey, you want a job? Come with me. I don't know when he learned this, but he did. So now he's like, Nick is actually daydreaming that he could sexually quid pro quo Laura into getting with him faster, because that's what his goal is. Jock Buddy is with him, talking about sexcapades before suggesting Nick and Laura have a crazy level chemistry. I don't know where he got that from. Quote, I'll tell you what, said Hugh, there's chemistry between you two. It may blow you up, but it's there. My own motto is, don't fish where you swim. That's silly. Work has always been a good place to hook up, just like school was. Oh yeah? Then why are several companies banning office relationships? They're virtue signaling, said Nick. Ever since a bunch of liberal celebrities got caught harassing babes, the media's been trying to throw us normal guys into the net. They brand any male advance as predatory. No means no. If no always meant no, I'd still be a virgin. What a thing to say. If no means no, I'd still be a virgin. Bro is bragging about this. And bro is out here throwing around, hey, they only want you to not make sexual advances on your coworkers because of other people, while also openly thinking about how their boss was trying to sexually coerce the new intern into sleep with me or have no career. But no, yeah, it's all just made up to make normal guys. Look, I'm sorry, Nick. I believe that men in general are better than you. That I don't think men generally are looking to prey on women. I don't think that Nick is the norm, but Nick thinks Nick is the norm. And that's kind of scary. I like how having something against women being sexually harassed or raped in the workplace is just virtue signaling in order to hurt normal guys. And not about, protecting corporations from allegations or lawsuits, and from protecting women or other employees, men even, because men can also be sexually abused in the workplace, but just protecting employees from abuse. Laura then comes in and complains about how she can't do her job and take care of her boyfriend. Quote, "You heard Russell, write something for the paper." "I can't come up with a good story idea," Laura said. "Between gophering here all day and nursemaiding Phil at night." "What's the matter with Phil?" "Senator Hawthorne is very high maintenance. The Republican juggernaut is wearing him down. Phil has to placate him, which means I have to soothe Phil." "And who comforts you?" "No one, Nick. I'm Joan of Arc." It's been one single day that they have been at this job. One single day, and she is complaining about having to gopher while taking care of her boyfriend. Has she not had a job before that she also had to take care of her boyfriend, or, be in a couple with her boyfriend? Maybe she should just be single if she's struggling to keep up with things. There is that. But you do kind of have a give and take in any relationship that is theoretically supposed to be a partnership. And if you are struggling, you should try talking to your partner. You should try to have open communication about it, about struggling, about, "Hey, Phil, I'm doing a new job," which also, note, the last scene that we had, which was her after her first day talking to Phil about her job. He asked, "Hey, what made today so hard?" He was trying to care for her. She wasn't going home to care for him. She was sitting there thinking about the ball she could have been at. And then when Phil noticed that something was up with her, where she seemed like kind of zoned out, kind of tired, he asked her what was wrong and then tried to comfort her. So even what this is saying is not being shown in the scenes that we got to see already. Now, Laura might be having difficulty with this new work, but Nick is not. So he has his story idea from the church/restaurant that he presents to the editor. Quote, "Every Monday night, Ramirez holds a special coffee house for his flock. I was there last night. There was singing, dancing, a good time had by all. It's a nice twist on the sacred immigrant cliche." Laura gets curious about Nick's unpublished immigrant article and reads it. She seeks him out to compliment him on how well written and thoughtful it was, and after that he reduces women to their appearances again. Quote, "Seriously, where did you learn to write like that? Montana U?" "Raymond Chandler," Nick said. "His every line's a lesson in style." "And misogyny." "Untrue. The man totally respected women," Nick added in a Bogart-like tone. "She was a blonde to make a bishop kick a hole in a stained glass window." Laura palmed her forehead. I still wanted to see if he would grow from being exposed to Laura, since Laura's main thing was wanting to be appreciated for the abilities that she had and not be reduced to her appearance. So that makes a great foil for somebody that automatically reduces every woman down to her appearance and only sees a woman's worth in her physicality and how hot she is. But that is not actually used in any way to move the story, to help the story. Nick is then at the gym with his friend Mike, who is doing sports, who is the token black conservative in the story, and the two of them are eyeballing all of the other women at the gym while Nick is also thinking about being in a relationship with Laura. Quote, "Nick's eyes strayed from Mike's to one of the stationary bikes, on which rode a comely co-ed in a green sports bra and gold shorts, her strong dark legs pumping smoothly on the pedal." "What would Laura London say?" asked Mike, sitting on the bench, breathing hard. "That I'm an equal opportunity sexist," said Nick. Mike chuckled and got off the bench. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I have the hardest time with cheating storylines, and this is the benefit of being 2-in-1. With Nick pursuing somebody in a relationship and Laura being in a relationship, I cannot stand the fetishization and romanticization of cheating and cucking somebody behind their back, while it also goes out of its way to forget about the victim of the cheating or pretend that they are some bad guy who deserved it to happen. On the way home from the gym, Nick talks about Mike's girlfriend that they're going to meet right now at a coffee shop. Mike says that she is great, super smart, hot, has a great heart, and that she stayed with him even when he was having a mental breakdown and had been a complete asshole to her. But he doesn't see them being together in the long term. He hasn't said it yet, but it's also the problem with her is she makes more money than him or will make more money than him in her chosen path. As they're getting to the coffee place, they stop so that Nick can help a veteran in a wheelchair get on a bus, to say that we can't just let all of the vets suffer like that and disappear into obscurity. They get to the coffee shop where Mike's lady friend is waiting. He goes to order a coffee, and Nick sits there with her, telling her that she should drop out of law school to spare Mike's ego. Quote, maybe he'll find a job right here in DC writing sports blogs or something. Natalie looked dubiously at Nick. Yeah, said Nick, agreeing with her look. Wouldn't even pay the electric bill. I'd be happy to pay our bill. That's too high of a price for some guys. Like you and Mike. So true, damn it. There is option B, said Nick. Follow my heart? Nick shrugged. Then my law school loan would follow me, said Natalie. It's no way to start a family, Nick. Trust me, I've been there. So I heard. I think there is a better reason to break up. She has his interest in mind. She has his best interest in mind, supporting him in mind. She was with him while he was struggling with things, but he doesn't have hers in mind. She's scared about the law school loan that she has. She's scared about putting them in a disadvantage, about not being able to exist in the town that he wants to have a job in. And he is only worried about her making more money than him. She wants to make sure they're taken care of. That's enough of a reason that this is just like, he does not care about you. I don't know. Maybe I'm the fool. Maybe I'm definitely the fool. That's why I'm the idiot. But maybe I'm the one that just doesn't get it. Because to me, a relationship is a partnership. So you should be talking to each other about what you want. And if you guys match in those areas that matter, and then your personalities match, yeah, but I think it is so much harder to find somebody who will stick with you when things are difficult, like he is describing. Like said he was an asshole to her and she stuck with him. He was having a mental breakdown and she stuck with him because she cared about him. And that's not good enough for him, because she'll make more money, because he is thinking about himself before her. And so, like, maybe I'm the weirdo here in thinking that in a relationship, you approach each other as equals and you talk about each other's needs and you try to be there for each other's needs, and you don't try to make somebody in a worse position than you for your own ego. But also, that would also just require being a partner, trusting your partner, and having these discussions. And Mike is obviously not saying this, but Mike wants to make her financially dependent on him, and she'll be more financially dependent because he'll already have a lower paying job. They live in an expensive area like Washington, D.C., and she has student loans already that she is not going to be able to pay by not continuing her path in that career. After all of that, and Mike comes back with his coffee, then Nick is like, I'm going to leave you guys. Peace. Have a good evening. Then he goes to the bus stop where the veteran in the wheelchair had been waiting, and talks to the bus lady about like who that veteran was, because he wants to search that guy down, get his story about like how he's missing legs. He also asks the bus driver if the guy in the wheelchair had ever told her why he was missing legs, which, as if that's a normal conversation to have. He also patronizingly congratulates her on kicking a couple of kids off the bus for mocking him at some point. Mocking the veteran, not Nick, though I think Nick would also clap for the bus driver if he was being mocked and kids got kicked off for mocking him too. Going over to Sarah, she comes into the mailroom to ask Laura to go to a concert with her. Think that we're going to get through an exchange without having a political comment made? Think again. Quote, who's Signa Barashi? Nick asked. Sarah and Laura looked at him as if he had asked who Oprah Winfrey was. An Indian folk singer decrying her country's patriarchal order, Laura said. More power to her, said Nick. Both women looked at him suspiciously. Are you being sarcastic? Sarah asked. Not at all, said Nick. The third world's pretty rough on women. Why, Nick, Sarah said, I'm pleasantly surprised at you. Unlike the spoiled crybabes who we got in this country, said Nick. I'm so confused how this scene goes down. So Sarah invites Laura to go to the concert. She says yes, she'll go. And then Nick more or less chases Sarah out of the office and then goes to Laura, gets tickets and a job for her to report on that guy, on that singer, even though Laura's position is not in music. Meanwhile, Laura is also panicked about the job and demands that Nick come and help her write her report. She is an Ivy League student, and she is complaining that she cannot write her own story. So again, it's just trying to push forward that the women only got the job because of their bodies, and they are actually completely inept at doing the jobs, and they need the men to do the jobs for them. A couple of them are out drinking, talking about work and women. They all know that Nick is pursuing Laura, but none of them have anything to say about her having a boyfriend. In fact, none of them actually talk about it. In fact, I don't even know if any of them know that she has a boyfriend, I guess, because they all just met during this internship, right? It says a lot about the values of the people here if they do know about the relationship and they just have nothing to say except cheering Nick on for disrupting the relationship to pursue what he wants to pursue, which is that none of them respect relationships. They just see women as people to conquer. This includes Tammy, who is at the table and called Sarah a lessie, upset that she wasn't being pursued, even though she is also hot. So again, she expects even women to just want to conquer other women. Warren of the interns offered to take Tammy home, and that's because he has a fat lust bomb for her. So now that they're at her house, he's sitting on the couch, unable to stop fantasizing about her, and to make Warren worse, he can't stop comparing her to other women that he's been with. Quote, Tammy was more beautiful than any other woman he'd ever known, let alone been with, and certainly his last girlfriend. He recalled the sting of seeing Sandy's recent Facebook post, how content she looked on the Great Falls hike beside the bearded IT hipster that she left him for, had slept with him even before then. He longed to post one himself and Tammy, with the words, in a relationship. Sandy would seethe at it, not because she wanted him back, but because he'd found someone hotter and cooler than her. Yeah, this is gross. So Warren doesn't give a crap about Tammy. He just sees her as a status symbol because she is so hot, and he wants to use her to get back at his ex, whom he is cyberstalking and still obsessed with. He also is trying to say, hey, it's so bad that my girlfriend slept with somebody else while we were still in a relationship, but it's going to do this to Laura, and Laura is not going to be in any way looked down on for cheating on her current partner. But this is so gross. And again, it's a man turning one of the leading female characters into an object because all she is sex and a status symbol to get back at other ones or to show off to dudes. There's not a single dude in this book that is not sleazy. Anyway, their interaction leads to her taking him upstairs for sex. So I guess he can now take a picture and do a status update since he is not, even if he's not seeing her, he can be like, hit it. Laura shows up for Nick while he is on his 5th beer and begs Nick to help her write her paper on the musician because she couldn't possibly do it herself. While doing so, he patronizes her. Be opinionated, Laura. I know that's hard for you. Is it? I thought that she went to an Ivy League. I thought that she was a belligerent feminist. So how is it so difficult for her to have a single thought? And how is it that she is not getting pissed off at him for being like, you don't have a thought in your head, you stupid woman? They finish the paper, and Nick goes in for a kiss, and I assume Laura wants it. Quote, he brought his mouth closer to Laura's. Just before their lips locked, she withdrew hers, frustrating him and, he thought, herself. He looked at Laura. She appeared furtive. As they're standing outside, Laura tells Nick how she slept with a professor in school, and that was a status symbol since she went to an all-girls school. So again, she didn't get anywhere based on merit. She got in places by using her body. Just furthering the idea that women only have their bodies to offer, and the only way that they can get anywhere is by selling themselves for advancement. Nick is like, there are so many vibes between us. Things have changed. Nick obviously has wanted to suck her face and squeeze her butt since the moment that he first saw her wiggling across the street. Partners be damned. While waiting, Laura's boyfriend shows up to pick her up from work and sees Nick being inappropriately close to his girl. Once in the car, Laura is staring out the windshield, guilty because of what went down with Nick, but not in the way that you would think. Quote, on the road, Laura stared guiltily out the windshield. She knew Nick had backed down because of her, and it went against his grain. So she is upset because he didn't keep going, and it's against who he is as a person to stop when in a sexual situation or romantic situation. She's got zero care for her boyfriend, no consideration for her boyfriend whatsoever, or what it means to be cheating on him. She only cares about affirming Nick's masculinity. Like, what the heck is that? And that's followed by an update on what Nick was doing with the senator. Quote, you didn't just come from our place, from senators, Phil said somberly. This late? I'd say just in time. Oh no, Laura said in alarm. He's drinking again. He was bombed. The old fool. He'll ruin everything. He almost did, tonight, said Phil. He had a call girl there, $1,000 whore, and was refusing to pay her. Said that he never got it up for her. Where are his wife and daughter? Concord till Sunday. What did you do? Called the whore's madam. She said not to worry. The senator always makes good once he's sober. Good God, Phil. Have we cast our hopes on the Titanic? No. Hawthorne's our last hope to restart the progressive agenda. He could be the next vice president if the religious right don't crucify him first. You'll save him, babe. Promise you'll help me, Laura, Phil said, no longer cocky. Laura sighed. Yes, Phil. Don't I always? What does Laura believe in any of this? It's going back to the idea that women don't have original thoughts, don't have any opinions of their own. Like, why is she with him? She doesn't like Phil. Has no political opinion whatsoever because, like, this guy is totally fine. What does she care about the progressive agenda? She doesn't have any beliefs, period. And the next day at work, Nick is pissed off that Laura is being recognized for her story that he helped her with, and he didn't even get any sex out of it. What the frick? Why do you help women if they're not going to sleep with you? Like, what the frick? How disgusting is this guy? And we have to remember, a couple of chapters ago, he was like, look, they only put rules in place for quid pro quo of, like, sexually harassing and abusing your coworkers to go after celebrities and hurt normal guys like us. Meanwhile, he's an intern, and he is like, she needed to pay me with sex for my help. It'd be fine if he would learn from this, but he is the hero. This is hero behavior according to this book, because it's never addressed. It's just, he's right. He's just right. Everything he does is just right. He's sitting here imagining himself getting some, to the point that he is mad that he didn't get laid last night. He feels owed by Laura because he did her a favor, but where is his favor, guys? And yet, she still invites this sleazeball to her boyfriend's party. There is a reason that Laura shouldn't trust this guy if she is not into sleazeballs like Todd Armstrong. And throughout the day, anytime anybody compliments Laura on her concert review, Nick snorts and makes a rude comment because, again, he doesn't believe that she has any ability to write, and the only reason that she succeeded is because of him, according to him. While Laura is congratulated by people at work, Nick is throwing a tantrum, and Laura is 100% a freaking fantasy girl for this book, for this author, in my opinion, and that's my guess. How else does this interaction make sense? Quote, to apologize for not defending you to Phil last night. That's okay, said Nick, pleasantly surprised. I could see that he was the jealous type. He indicated the chair. Laura took it. For the first time since he met her, she looked unsure of herself. To be perfectly honest, Nick, he has some reason to be. Why? You cheating on him with Ted Armstrong? No, but I would have been more forthright with Phil if I didn't like you so much. Nick misswallowed his lemonade and had to cough it down. Oh, why you have to say something like that for? He blurted out. To torment you, Nick. To torment you, Laura said with a fetching smile. But since we're never going to be lovers, I'd like us to be friends. Friends, You want to go fishing with me, play some golf, watch football, maybe do a little hunting? None of the above. Huh. Then I should hang out with you and Sarah. Groove the Cigna, what's her name? Bash men, no? Just what kind of friend do you want us to be, Laura? You're not saying that what I think that you're saying, that men and women can't be platonic? Sure they can, said Nick, if there's no attraction between them, but you're too damn cute. So are you, Nick. If it wasn't for Phil, things might be different, but as you know, Phil's no friend of mine. So? So romancing you wouldn't violate the code. I'm afraid to ask, Laura said. The code? A friend's girlfriend is off limits. And the rest are fair game. That's right, said Nick. What about friend's ex-girlfriend? If she dumped him, the code applies. If he dumped her, she's doable. What if your friend's girlfriend prefers you? The code, Nick said. What if she's not officially his girlfriend, just someone that he lusts after? If he stakes his claim into her? The code. Staked his claim to her, Laura said incredulously. What if your friend is a lesbian? That could be a loophole. Incredible, said Laura. I came here to apologize to you, and now I feel insulted. But I still have to make amends for last night by inviting you to my soiree Friday. Me? At yours and Phil's love nest? He's throwing a party to celebrate my writing debut in the Post. I finally told him how much you helped me, and he said to be sure to invite you. That's the kind of gallantry he has. Naturally, if you feel awkward, I'll be there. As my friend, as your coworker, said Nick. for the time being. Dude literally says that he doesn't respect her relationship and is going to hit on her relentlessly because of it. And she's like, let's be friends though, okay? Even if you're going to like disrespect me and my boyfriend and act inappropriately because you don't recognize him as being my legitimate partner or a relationship, I'm still going to choose to hang around you. And then you have Laura saying that she would date him if she wasn't with Phil. So just freaking dump Phil so he can move on to somebody else so you can ride the cowboy without leading the boyfriend on, because he deserves to be with somebody who wants to be with him, who's going to be honest with him. And then you can go and do whatever you want to do. Like, why drag other people into this mess? It's so stupid and I hate it. I hate everything about it. Nick has zero respect for Laura, only sees her as an object to put on his dick, and then he sees every interaction as transactional, not just his own, but other people's, and grades based on that. And he will violate people based on whether he thinks he wants something from them or not. And since he doesn't want anything from Phil, he is totally fine stomping all over Phil and having zero consideration for him as a person, because he doesn't see people, he sees objects to be used. The two of them leave the cafeteria only to run into another woman working at the Washington Post who asks them if they're dating. When Laura says no and Nick shrugs, says, oh, must have a time machine or something. Laura, you need to either dump Phil or stop doing this with Nick, because he is straight up laying his interest on you and it's inappropriate to continue around him like this when you're in a relationship. If somebody is crossing those boundaries and you are in a relationship, you need to express no and stop being around them until they can respect you, if they can ever respect that. You should not be doing that to your partner. You need to have more respect for your partner and their feelings and their personhood than to do this with somebody who is constantly saying they are going to hit on you regardless, and they don't respect that relationship. Warren comes to see Nick and invites him and Laura to a concert that he and Tammy are going to. This is going to be a double date. So again, why isn't Laura just friggin' single? Because no one acknowledges Phil's existence in any of this, and it just makes them all look scummy. At the concert, they get into another political rant about women's proper places. Quote, "Take special people to rise above limited backgrounds. You did." "Oh, so now you're knocking my folk," said Tammy. No, Warren said tensely. "They just have some regressive views in West Virginia, like clinging to their God and their guns," Nick said. Warren looked accusingly at him. "I agree with them," said Tammy. "I'm like every girl here. I want to have fun with the boys and someday marry me a good one. Keep a home, raise some kids while my husband works hard to support us. What's so damn hayseed about that?" "Nothing," Warren said, making it sound like a question. Tammy looked inquisitively at Nick. "Search me," said Nick. "I love how feminists want women to do men's work while knocking the one labor that they can do that men can't. Now that's an inequality I can support." "It's silly," Tammy said. "Most men are nice guys like you two, looking for love, not to oppress us gals. Why, I've been proposed to more times than I've been propositioned. Sure, there are creeps out there. I get hit on by my share of 'em, but I don't go crying to the world about it. I just smack 'em down." They probably enjoy that," Nick said. "I mean, who made Laura London and Sarah the spokeswomen for our gender?" "Hollywood," Nick said. Warren and Tammy looked at him. "In every movie or TV show now, the girls are just as macho as the boys, if not more so. You got anorexic starlets beating up 200-pound guys. Female sensuality and sensitivity are out. You never see a housewife or a femme fatale on screen anymore. Even Wonder Woman now wears a suit of armor. The most famous sex symbol of all time now looks like every chick on Game of Thrones. Guess they're afraid that her old costume might perk up preteen boys, like it has some in the past." He cleared his throat. Tammy chuckled. "But it's contra nature," Nick said. "Little girls still want to be Disney princesses, not Amazon princesses." "That's right," said Tammy. "Our power ain't in our muscles, but in our feminine charms." This is so stupid. There's more than one way to be a female. There's more than one way to express yourself as a woman. There are some that want to be the dainty princesses. There are some that want to be the Amazonian princesses. There are some that don't want to be princesses at all. This is such a dumb conversation, and I have seen it so many times in conservative circles where, like, you have to be a certain way or else you're a man, or else you're trying to be a man. Nobody is talking about the freaking realism that is not behind John Wick, but then you have somebody doing a power fantasy with a strong female character, and it's like the world is ending. I'm sorry. I don't think that's such a big deal. And then you got this thing over here where she's like, I want to meet a nice man and settle down and have a family. So she's conservative in every way except not having sex before marriage, because why? Because Nick does the exact same thing. He's like, I'm conservative in everything except I want to sleep with Laura a lot. Which, where's the value? This is just trying to push certain values, really. I mean, really. And I'm not saying that you can't be conservative and have sex before marriage or whatever. But it's interesting that you're going to have all of these characters that talk about their conservatism and how traditional they are, but they're not traditional in that sense because they all want to get their tallywaggers wet. And then you also have her talking about, I've been propositioned, but there are creeps out there, but they ain't the max of people. And just because I get creeped on don't mean I talk to nobody about it. It's just a me thing, and I can beat them all down. So in the same conversation that you're saying, women are now in movies beating men and being strong, Tammy is also like, I'm going to beat these men down. And they don't say anything bad about that. This reeks of being written by a man that does not understand these issues that he's talking about and does not care. He's being dismissive because the whole thing is like, women need to sit down and shut up and just be there. Like, it's not that big a deal if you're hit on by creeps. Yeah, they say that because they're a freaking creep. We've seen Nick do it. We've seen Todd Armstrong do it. Ted Armstrong, whatever the frick his name is. We've seen his friend Hugh do it. Warren's done it. Like, they excuse it because they are creeps. Also, to note in this, it says a lot that the author associates housewife with female sensuality. But really, Tammy and them are here complaining about Laura and Sarah having literally just having opinions and then saying who made them the queen of opinions, while also they have their opinions. And they believe that they have the right to steamroll over Sarah and Laura for theirs. It's funny how sensuality of femme fatale or housewife are the same, and it's how all women should be, falling into one or the other. But also note that the two ideas of femme fatale and housewife are just another way to look at the Madonna horror complex. Women are much more than falling into one of these two types of categories. Why? Because women are people with personalities and interests and modes of expression, just like women. And I know some dudes have a hard time understanding that. Just like some women have a hard time understanding that there are variations to men. It is not a specific issue. It is just a close-minded issue. You don't get anywhere thinking like this. It is just insulting. And that is what I'm pointing out. It continues, quote, "That's what artists have been trying to capture since the Stone Age," said Nick. Like the smile on the Mona Lisa. That's why Jennifer Lawrence and Jessica Chastain will be forgotten in 3 years. But Monroe, Hayworth, Novak, never. They were goddesses, not feminist fantasies of one. Lefties may deny that for a while with the help of metrosexual men, but nature will come out, and I refuse to wait that long. But you're in love with Laura, Tammy said solemnly. The irony hasn't escaped me. He's not in love with Laura. He's lusting after Laura for her ample peach because he actually hates her opinions, her thoughts, her personality. He doesn't respect her. He sees her as something to conquer, especially because of her political beliefs. He's like, can I do it? Can the cowboy conservative cock tame the lesbian, the feminist shrew? That's what he wants to know because it's a power fantasy. Further, as they're watching something, he picks up an insult that he wants to try on Laura the next day because he doesn't give a shit about her. He just wants to tame her. The next day at work, Nick tries out the line on Laura before running off to his new job that he was assigned. Then we go to Phil, who is with Senator Hawthorne, to throw around more buzzwords as they complain about abortion being harder to get because of stupid Republicans. Quote, "It was going to be a progressive century with the GOP as dead as their hero, Reagan. Then, in 4 hours on election night, goddamn Armageddon, a loudmouth pig and his party a swine in charge of the whole pen, while we're left wallowing in the mud." Phil had heard the same lament too many times. He knew the answer, but couldn't voice it, even to his liberal boss. Speaking the truth had cost their standard bearer the presidency. But she had been right. Middle America was indeed a breadbasket of racist, misogynistic, homophobic, xenophobic, superstitious, gun-loving deplorables, like Laura's cowboy admirer, Nick. The senator takes a shot before going out to speak on the Senate floor. Contrast this against Nick hanging out with the Boy Scouts for a story and bonding with the leader having a good time. Another person asks Nick if he is married, and he then says that he is in pursuit. The contrast between the two is literal propaganda to me. It's like, look at the progressives being mean, 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 me, and me, the conservative, hanging out with literal Boy Scouts because I'm a good boy while talking about being a homewrecker. It's funny that this book will complain about how in old movies, men and women seemed to like each other more. And maybe that has something to do, one, with romanticizing the past, but two, they genuinely liked each other back then. We've seen nothing but everyone around Nick constantly trying to manipulate each other to get something from them, but not genuinely liking each other. And then he wonders why in the old movies they seem to genuinely like each other and actually got along better. Well, maybe if you stop looking at people as tools, you would have better luck, Nicholas. So then Nick is with his coworker Hugh being dragged to an art show that neither of them wanted to go to because Hugh is trying to get with this super hot girl who's into art and theater, but he's not. And he's trying to manipulate her because he's got a gay best friend. And so he's like, hey, Nick, I need you to pretend to be gay so that I can talk to her alone. And I'm going to use pretending to be gay like this is an early aughts sitcom in order to get close to her so I can hit on her. This is predatory behavior. So the gay thing works, and the girl is upset that he showed up and appeared gay when she was interested in him. So everything works out because he's like, well, I'll bang you because I'm not actually gay. And Nick tells the best friend that he is not gay, and that's fine too. And yeah, Nick shows up at Laura's party after that and picks a fight with everyone there on political topics because why wouldn't he? He's got no respect for any of them and just wants to cockfight with literally everybody in Washington, D.C. And he also flirts with Laura in front of her boyfriend. No one says anything about this, and instead they argue about abortion, racism, capitalism, how women shouldn't have careers and must raise children, the Redskins football team name, taking a knee in football, etc. Like hitting all of the topics. This is just a mixer of talking points for conservatives. It's all just a setup for strawman conversations. Eventually, Phil gets tired of Nick and kicks him out of the party. Nick leaves, but not without punching Phil in the face first. He should have gone to jail for that, at least like had charges pressed against him for something, maybe been fired, maybe make that a news story that an intern at Washington Post had punched the Connecticut senator's assistant, but there are no consequences. Why? Because this is a personal fantasy story. And I don't care how much you disagree with somebody, but you being violent towards somebody's opinions doesn't make you a good person. It doesn't make you right. It doesn't make you brave. It doesn't make you cool or hot. It makes you pathetic. And you're attempting to coerce and frighten with physical threat. This is the equivalent of watching someone have a mind fight so that they can feel good about themselves for all of the things that they've never been able to say and win in person. Nick then emails one of the other conservatives at the paper about what just happened. Quote, last night I got thrown out of my first Washington party. I had some political differences with the host, a legislative aide to the powerful Democrat senator, but instead of debating me intellectually, he became churlish and hysterical in the face of opposing thought. He was backed up by a feminist chorus line, which included the lovely hostess. He passed the Newman test. I learned about this test at the same party. It's a new standard to measure a man's abandonment of traditional male behavior. Basically, the wimpier he acts, the higher he scores. Contrary to progressive doctrine, women haven't gotten stronger. They have made men weaker. It's wrong. It's the wrong way to achieve gender equality. If ever a book screamed boomer born more, it's this book. Dude was not a pansy and was not hysterical. He told you to get out of his house because you were causing a scene and hitting on his girlfriend, and you punched him. You were hysterical, Nick. You were unable to handle somebody else's opinions. You were unable to be an adult in an adult professional situation, and you would think that him getting violent would have some kind of consequence. No. His excuse for punching Phil, quote, someone gets in my face, they better be wearing lipstick. You should have left when he told you to. I like leaving to be my idea. No. If you're on someone else's property, if somebody tells you to leave their house, you leave. It's not when I feel like it, when you are no longer somebody's guest. Laura says that they could never work out because of their political differences, not because he is so quick to violence when something goes away he doesn't want it to go. That's not a red flag at all. And then he turns this conversation into a porno. I freaking swear. Quote, it could never have worked out, Nick. You oppose all that I stand for. Nick shrugged. I like you, he said. You don't get it. What I stand for is me. Maybe you can love someone you vehemently disagree with. Not me. I have to fight for my beliefs, and it's an uphill battle. I'm against women in combat, said Nick. What? I'm pro-life, pro-death, pro-God. I choke up at the Star-Spangled Banner. I think housewives should be role models and marriage only between a man and a woman. But right now, none of those mean a damn. The only thing worth fighting for is you. Laura stared at him, her brown eyes less penetrative than normal, actually opaque. Kiss me, Nick, she said. What? You just said that it couldn't happen. You just made a great case for it. Even I, the jury, was ready to pack it. Nick, Laura said, you think too much. Tell me this isn't somebody's fantasy. Like, the way that it reads, the way that it writes, it's not a clear character. It's not a clear anything. It is just dude bragging about his right-leaning beliefs, and then a left-leaning hot chick being like, you know what? I don't have a boyfriend anymore. Let me kiss you. I want to make out with you so hard right now. And by make out, I mean they do actually go and have sex. And Sarah, who is going to convert Laura to the Church of the Lesbian, is disappointed because she was supposed to hang out with Laura that night, and now it's clearly not her. The next day, they wake up, and Laura gets a call from Phil while her and Nick are getting hot and heavy. She can't break up with Phil because she is scared. She says that Phil hit her once but hasn't done so since. Nick says that he'll never love a woman as much as he loves her, and she needs to break it off with Phil this weekend. Everything, if you watch what he is doing this entire time, and the way that he talks to her, and then the way that he makes actions, everything Nick does is a manipulation tactic to take advantage of Laura's vulnerability and her emotions. And it doesn't have to be that way. But by saying, I would never love anybody as much as I love you, and then he is the one that dumps her and runs off and lies to her and then has sex with other women after he is the one that betrayed her. If this is what love looks like from Nick, but this is just love bombing. It's not somebody that genuinely cares about her. Laura gets home and lies more to Phil as he is suspicious of her, but she won't be straight with him about what she is doing. I don't know why. She's got friends. She can go live with Nick. Nick spends his day with a man in a wheelchair and gets more of the story of him being off at war and how he lost his legs and writes about it. Everybody is at work already talking about Nick having sex with Laura and them being a couple. Nick's also called into the office about his vet story. It's just another opportunity for political talking points. Quote, you may or may not know, said Henley, that Alice Lassiter is supposed to give a speech at Daniel Coral University Wednesday night. That should be pretty eventful, said Nick. Could be violent, Russell said. Sure, said Nick. The university is an unsafe space for the chief promoter of the Pentagon's transgender ban. How do you feel about that? Henley asked. Feel, sir? I don't. I think the military was wrong for the social experimenting. Detracts from their main job to kill people and break things. Takes some hard men to do that, like my jarhead brother. Well, said Henley, that's certainly the traditional view. The issues moved close to home, Russell said. Maryland House of Representatives. The transgender bathroom bill, said Nick. It would allow any man to use the ladies' room, said Henley, if he identifies as a woman. Lassiter has been the bill's strongest critic. Now the governor said that he is going to veto it, making Lassiter even more popular on the university campus, Nick said. Who invited her to Daniel Coral's? The Young Conservatives for Freedom, Russell said. So the story they want Nick to cover is an inside scoop on the protesters. He also has to live on campus for 2 days and pretend to be a student to get into the student groups. This is just an excuse to put him into a frat house where he gets in touch with some guy who's going to be in the CIA and to also put and Laura in the sorority house. They're both being posted not into dorms but Greek houses, and tell me that this person has a fondness for early aughts rom-coms without telling me. Nick and Laura flirt over dinner, then there is more sex. Laura and Nick then have breakfast, and Nick and Laura have breakfast that Nick made them, and then they head off to the college campus. He's checking her out the whole way there, basically slicking the floor with his drool and, business, and lecturing her for reading a book by the lesbian woman who defends the LGBT and bathroom bills. You only have Nick getting words in to lecture the reader. Laura, quote, she's right, technically, said Nick, and science backs her up. That's the unholy grail on your side, isn't it? That we're all gonna drown from melted icebergs in 5 years? Maybe. But unlike climate change, genetic science is settled. Chromosomes determine gender, not sexual discomfort. Cutting off his pecker won't make an XY into an XX, and grafting one won't enable a double X to lug a 90-pound battle pack through the Afghan desert. That's why Lassiter is against the bathroom bill. She thinks it's anti-woman to have a guy walking on a naked chick just because he's feeling pretty that day. Yet she's willing to compromise. If you minus a dick, then you can use the girls' room. But you gotta walk the walk in there. For that, progressives want to burn her at the stake. Next, they'll be banning pregnant women as offensive to gay couples. She doesn't allow for people's feelings, said Laura, prickled. Feelings, Nick snorted. Feelings are reactive, not proactive. We can't keep them from getting hurt. How we respond to that is what makes us who we are. I should have known that you're Nietzschean. Minus the whole God is dead thing, I'm prepared for the worst. Unlike college snowflakes with their trigger warnings and microaggressions in the face of opposing thought, 'cause when the real threat comes, there'll be no safe spaces for them to hide. I wouldn't mind so much if there was actually a story in this book, but instead it's just like political talking points strung together for him to win against whatever thing he's in. They get into the campus, and there are protesters outside already who are anti the speaker, and they're talking about on the bus. Nick can't stop saying conservative buzzwords like he is paid per standing applause made by Daily Wire subscribers. Quote, a girl with round glasses and short hair displayed a sign, ban hate, ban Lassiter. Ban speech, Nick said. You're right for once. They should let her speak and then debunk her to her face. Much too triggering for these snowflakes. Laura and Nick separate to their different Greek houses, where Laura gets being greeted by sorority girls written by a man who has no idea of what sororities look like, probably outside of the hazing, barely legal porn he's watched in private. Now to Nick's Greek life. Let's see how that compares to the all the girls are stupid side of things that Laura went into. Quote, Nick bonded quickly with the Delta Tau Epsilons. He hadn't belonged to a fraternity in the University of Wyoming, but he and his two college friends outdid any frat boy in taking full advantage of young manhood. They had given little thought to race or religion, but plenty to the opposite gender. In the most politically incorrect form, their approach had been mostly rewarded, other than a few romantic disappointments, which they got as well as gay. I like how every time Nick is on the page, it has to tell you how he's so politically incorrect and rude to women, and hell yeah, it works to get so much poon. He gets so much poon he doesn't know what to do with. The guys at the frat house immediately know that he is not one of them. It's funny how this school just lets randoms walk into the dorms, and I guess there is no check on background or anything when adults are coming into these kids' schools. The frat house decides to let him stay so that he can do his report, but he requests something, quote, just give our frat house a fair shake in the post, Sean said. We're getting hammered by the snowflakes as patriarchal creeps. I know the feeling, said Nick. They call our house hostile environment just 'cause we like to sleep with girls, without the use of handcuffs, said Peter. Why is it that every man in this book is a literal creep? Political persuasion doesn't matter. We already saw Nick say that he doesn't take no for an answer and that sexual harassment and quid pro quo in business aren't real, and he'll do them. Nick also learns that these guys are all young conservatives, and the one he's talking to, Ben Shapiro, is actually a Jew. It's kind of weird that in both of the Greek house chapters, they bring up Judaism and ask somebody while introducing people if they're Jewish or specifically that. It's very strange. Nick interviews Ben, who says that there will be violence at the protests, that they are outside agitators, and that they are making threats that Lassiter should be disinvited or else there will be even more violence. Literally, this book is someone's poster child of having zero creativity but wanting to have a mind fight that they always win. It's more sad when you think of the reviews saying that this is what conservatives will nod to, and that liberals can learn from this, because if this is really what you think it's your opposition, your political disagreements need to see to better understand you, then yikes, because I don't think it's going to give you the results that you might be expecting. In order to get more background on where the violence might come from, they go to the social justice professor and his class. It's funny how all of the men are smart and getting into the CIA and know that Nick is fake from the go, but Laura gets into the sorority and they immediately start talking about makeup and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm in hell. I can't even help but talk about makeup. Ah, what's it doing to me? Nick is waiting for Laura in the quad, looking suspicious at other students with his excessive heterosexuality. Yeah, that's right. It described him as having excessive heterosexuality. And you can tell how biased this book is if it wasn't already obvious by Laura's being disinterested in political culture and comparative perspectives. Nick mocks her for being a bad liberal because she doesn't have liberal interests. We get an example then of what this person thinks college classes look like when the professor is talking to their students. Quote, all we lack is the organization, and that's where you young people come in. You must better challenge your energies to defeat the forces of darkness now occupying our government. Laura nodded enthusiastically. Nick shook his head. You must be like Gandalf at the bridge of Kadam, shouting at the right-wing horror, you shall not pass. Lord of the Rings, whispered Nick, fantasy these snowflakes can relate to. And the next beast that you'll confront is Alice Lassiter, the purveyor of hate against the transgender. She plans to speak out on campus tomorrow night, but she shall not pass. Ballard raised a fist. Say it with me. She shall not pass. She shall not pass. The students took up the chant with increasing fervor. She shall not pass. She shall not pass. She shall not pass. Laura said, pumping her fists with the others. She shall not pass. Nick looked reproachfully at her. She winked at him. Ballard waved the crowd to silence. Insanity. Detached, brain dead, insanity. The professor seems to know what's going to happen at the protest the next couple of days and has inside scoop that Nick wants to get. So after class is dismissed, Nick pressures Laura into sleeping with the teacher for information, and she says she doesn't want to, but he's still like, you have to. And then she's like, okay, fine, I'll do it, after all of this pressure from him. And why am I not surprised that Mr. No doesn't always mean no? Sexual harassment is fine, and women are just their bodies, is totally fine with pressuring her into sleeping with somebody she doesn't want to sleep with so that he can get political advancement. Laura just takes it, and Laura transforms into sexual optimum sex mode. Quote, she stood up, leaving her coat and backpack on the adjacent seat. She slinked down the aisle towards the stage. Nick watched her backside. Her gold cashmere sweater seemed suddenly clingier, her black wool skirt tighter, her very physique more curvaceous. How did women do that? He wondered. And why did some deny it? If men had that power, most of them would have a harem. Nick remained in his high rear seat, observing the show below. And when Laura approaches the professor, you will not be surprised to find that, oh, another male character in this book is a creep. Quote, even Ballard entertained his 3 female fans and some lascivious thoughts about their leader, Flint. Intellectually, he knew that he should regard her as no different from his male students, but heterosexual desire always arose, as did opportunity. He was 57, divorced, and surrounded every day by nubile young women who, in other professions, would have nothing to do with him, who viewed sleeping with him as a kind of progressive initiation. So every semester he took the comeliest of them under his wing and bed sheets. This time it would be Flint, presently harping on about the local burrito stand. She was attractive enough for him, if not what his more sexist students would call a hottie. Then he saw someone much more fitting of the term. How are you feeling about this so far? Laura approaches and is just laying herself out on the table, basically acting like she's being plowed already, and the professor is the most subtle guy ever. Quote, right. I would have noticed you, said Ballard, then realized the implications of that statement and quickly added, I try to remember my students' faces, you know. I hope that you'll be seeing a lot more of mine. It'll be a pleasure to have you among my victims. I mean, students. Note, learn to write better. That's all that I can say to this. The guy obviously invites her to his house to discuss the problems over politics that she is having with her current partner because her and Nick are pretending to be dating in school. Nick is now talking to the police chief on campus. He wanted to see what she had to say about the protest and threats coming in and all of that. Can confirm he thinks that he is going to get arrested for jaywalking on campus here, and I can confirm I'm bad to the bone. I was arrested for jaywalking in Virginia. I was also bodied in an art museum by the art security guy. I am, so, some would call me a baddie. I spend so much time being a baddie. And we can't talk about me this whole time. So, Nick, after some of his prying, the police chief tells him the truth off the record that she has been told to stand down because the president wants to blame her. The president of the school wants to blame her. And they're not supposed to let this chick speak, and so she's going to take the fall. The school agrees with the snowflakes, and yes, the cops are also calling the kids snowflakes. Conservatives like this prove again that they've got nothing but participation trophies, such as a decades-old phrase like this, that they try to use to bully people. The lady chief then laments failing as a street cop in Chicago and a man dying, quote, at her hands because she couldn't pull her weight and now is stuck as a campus cop. Heard that you ordered another conservative talking point stereotype. Or, there you go. Women cops should only work in domestic violence cases, which is what Nick says, is that some victim out there needs her kindness, because that's what women cops are good for, is only victims advocacy. She says that she is going to do the right thing tomorrow and then quit her job afterwards rather than following orders and letting people get hurt. Nick is so bad at this undercover thing that he approaches Laura while she is marching with others at the protest and tries to tell her about the sting operation instead of, like texting her to meet him somewhere where they could meet in private. She is then like, we can't fraternize in public. People might get the wrong ideas about us. While they're still very obviously talking about plans, he slips the USB into her hand and tells her that she needs to put it into the guy's computer when she goes to that guy's house. And then they fake an argument where they break up, and then the girls around Laura are like, yes, queen, dump that sexist pig. You go, girl. Laura then gets a makeover at the sorority house in what the sisters refer to as slutwear. And now Nick is worried about Laura getting raped by the teacher or turning it on him for ideological reasons. She's left her boyfriend for you, Nick. You deserve to be turned on for forcing her into this when she didn't want to do it in the first place. Nick is talking to his bros about this, and it is taking Mr. 151 IQ to inform Nick that if the professor finds out that Laura is a scam, then she is actually in physical danger because he could overpower her. And Nick starts panicking and wants to call off the sting operation. Laura gets to the professor's house, quote, Laura got out of the car and traveled up the walkway in Liz's spike high heels, damning the sexist male invention. She rang the doorbell and struck a provocative pose. She is trying to hide the USB in her outfit, where there is nowhere to hide it, and you'd think that she would have thought of something before actually getting to the location. The professor can't stop creepily staring at her the entire time as he drools over himself. Quote, Laura sat down, her legs crossed to show off a bare right one, extending the spiky heeled shoe. Long accustomed to androgynous social justice warrior fashion, Ballard felt deliriously base, like he was watching pornography for the first time in years. Briefly, he tried to reconcile his beliefs in gender distinction with it tingling in his groin, and then had to acknowledge the reality. He lusted after this exquisite young goddess like a common laborer, but unlike one of those, he would use his superior intellect to possess her. He leaves the room. She puts the stick into his computer and panics about how she needs to keep him busy for the next couple of minutes. The USB stick turns on the webcam so the guys at the frat house can all admire just how hot Laura is, because we need to be reminded that Laura is super freaking hot and everybody is a voyeur in her life, saying that she could be on Playboy. And Nick is like, OMG, she is not a sex object. She is an intelligent woman. And you might be like, hey, progress. It's fake. It's fake. He's just mad at them all checking out this girl that he wants to be the one to look at. As Laura is seducing this guy, she just keeps talking about how shameful it is, which you'd think that as a feminist straw man, her sexuality would be a power, not slut-shaming thing, but here we are. The narrative keeps having her say that her family and herself are disappointed in how she is now, while frozen in her tracks is spotted in the text, I can't get away from it. You know how I feel about this phrase. But the description of this is so dumb. Quote, Laura looked at the unchanging computer screen and groaned. She raised her right knee and began sensuously extending and folding her lower leg, grateful that her mother couldn't see the current application of her preteen ballet classes, sensuously extending her lower leg. Anyway, Laura distracts the guy with her sexy knee bending and kisses him and gets him to talk about his plan and then leaves, all moist herself from the successful doing of this caper job that she's like, maybe I can do this. Oh my gosh, I'm so horny right now. I need to like shower. The book also takes the opportunity to go, Nick is right about everything, quote. Approaching the street, she phoned Caroline. As she stood on the street corner waiting for her ride, one question beset her. Had she just validated Nick's contention about women's greatest power being her sex appeal? She had been his girlfriend just 2 days. One more week with Nick, and she'd be joining the NRA. So, like, everything in this book is just constantly like, you know what, Nick is right. I am politically opposed to Nick, but Nick is also just right. Nick is lamenting that he had Laura do this, and also how old movies were better than newer anything, because that's also a political talking point, that nothing good is created anymore. If that's true, then why am I here? You're right. That's proof against the opposite. I'm sorry. He also complains like Laura betrayed him, quote, Nick stood between his new friends, Leigh and Ben, a bottle of Budweiser in his hands, waiting for Laura. He had needed the entire hour to suppress his distaste at what he saw her do, what he had essentially made her do. Laura had tried to warn him. Love was a thrill, not a thriller. Its real-life consequences hurt. He knew Laura would be expecting his inquiry about her time with Ballard, never suspecting that he had actually observed it, and worse, with 2 other voyeurs. He hoped that she would admit to what she did so that he could trust her in the future and make the episode the sordid past. He put her up to this. He did this. He told her to have sex with him. He has no right to that information. He pushed her into doing this, and he is going to act like it is a betrayal of her, from her, if she doesn't tell him every sordid detail. Now there's a party with the Greeks, and Nick is admiring Laura talking to the ladies. Caroline, one of the hottest girls there, tells Nick how perfect he and Laura are together because, of course. Laura also says that she is a virgin, holding herself until marriage for religious reasons, something that Nick says that he does not want to do. He and Laura then talk to each other about the professor, and he asks her what her favorite genre of music is, and she says it is gospel. Quote, I know, I'm agnostic, but glorious black voices singing soulfully to God really gets me. No preaching, Nick. What a weird thing to insert into this. Then Nick and Laura help get rid of some other girl who was interested in the guy that Caroline is interested in, and then pull him into a side room to ask him what his intentions are with Caroline, and that he should keep his pants on and wait for the right girl, because he'll be a better man for it, and instant gratification is a lie. I guess we're an after-school special now. As Laura and Nick leave, he talks about how he is willing to break his conservative rules to have sex before marriage for her, and she's like, oh, I can abstain from sex until we're married. He's like, no, don't make that sacrifice for me, please. Nick decides that he is going to propose to Laura, and she legit says she's going to think about it. 1, remember, she hasn't broken up with Phil yet. 2, they've known each other for like a week. This book takes place within 2 weeks, by the way. Meanwhile, the guy that they just hooked Carolina up with is a womanizing playboy. Quote, Peter enjoyed the way Caroline felt against his shoulder, as if under his protection. It went against his predatory instinct. Nice. Meanwhile, Asian genius CIA guy comes down saying that he has cracked the professor's plan wide open, just like Peter does ladies' buttholes. Now, before they even get into the who is behind the guerrilla protesters, there's, quote, there is racism, Nick. I've encountered it as an Asian American. Sure, there's racism, where there's freedom of stupidity. Only it's individual, not institutional. Cops aren't out gunning up for black people like the race baiters claim. They just want to go home at night to their wives and kids, but there'll always be idiots obsessing on arbitrary things like skin color. The truth is, I got more in common with most black, Asian, Latin, and Arab men than I do with any white woman. So sexism is your argument against racism, said Leigh. Original, isn't it? Nick said with a smile. Don't keep me in suspense, Leigh. Who's behind the curtain? And guess who's behind the curtain? Oh yeah, it's George Soros. I'm not even joking. Yeah, it's freaking a stand-in for George Soros named Gregory Lanos. Quote, billionaire founder of far-left policies and politicians like a most recent presidential loser. Lanos helped turn his native Greece into a socialist dump. Now he wants to do the same to our side of the pond. The last election must have been a setback. said Leigh. Progressives are like vampires, said Nick. They keep coming, sucking the traditional life stream of this country. The universities fell long ago, followed by movies and the press. You're the press. I'm the ghost in the machine. Nick, shut up. You're an intern at the Washington Post. What are you even doing here? None of this book makes sense, which tracks for a personal fantasy. They also find out where all the supplies are coming from for the guerrilla protesters, like bats and ski masks and all of that, and Nick volunteers to go into that situation to get more in-depth information, even if it kills him, and they're all freaking worried about Nick's health. Nick is lecturing Laura then about how they're doing the right thing because liberals are always evil, but tonight they're gonna defeat them. Quote, how bad do you think tonight will be? Pretty bad, said Nick. Those baseball bats aren't for little leaguers. Should Lassiter bear some of the blame? Not in my book, which is the Constitution. She has the right to speak. Even hate speech. Especially hate speech, said Nick. What leftists brand any opinion they dislike. If you're pro-life, you're anti-woman. If for traditional marriage, you're anti-gay. For securing the borders, you're anti-immigrant. Pro-Second Amendment, you want school kids to die. Your side has gotten away with that canard for years. But not tonight. I suppose you're going to stop it? We are, Laura. You and me. We'll report the facts and let the chips fall where they may. You forgot I'm a liberal. A classic liberal. What's the difference? Would you ban To Kill a Mockingbird? Course not, it's brilliant. A school district in Virginia did this year, Nick said, because of its realistic depictions of Depression-era racism, even though the book condemns it. How about Huckleberry Finn? Never, said Laura. There's another anti-racism masterpiece, banned, but not only in Virginia. I know. It hurts. I love books. Their power to describe a universe, even an evil one, full of ugly words. I hate to see literature censored into this clarity. You see? You respect the men who made Western civilization, warts and all. It was an exclusive club back then, founded by a gay guy and a Jew. Socrates and Jesus, said Laura, and the last best hope for preserving their ideas, like it or not, is this country. It could use some political correction, but not destruction like so many of your allies want, said Nick. That's a mad conspiracy theory, is it? They take down the monuments, starting with the easy ones, Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, Jeb Stuart. But why stop there? Our founding fathers were slave owners, Washington, Jefferson, Franklin, the whole gang. Sure, they wrote the greatest governmental document of all time, but they were slave owners, so that tears it. And if the Constitution's no good, then the Bill of Rights is moot, and then you can make up the laws as you go along like any banana republic, which is what will be to go their way. Another Venezuela. There's something in what you say, Laura said. Hey, I like the sound of that. Everything in here is just to give Nick a platform to be glazed because he couldn't make these arguments in real life and win. It's funny those comments in the Amazon are like, all they have are political talking points, slogans for the left wing, but the left wing has literally said nothing, and you just get right-wing slogans in this, and Nick doesn't have to defend anything. Everybody just goes and agrees with him. Laura says that if he survives tonight, then she'll marry him, and so you know he's going to survive. I mean, you already knew he was going to survive the night. He's basically Rambo, but works at Washington Post. He says that he will survive and that he is already planning for their future mentally, where he is choosing for her to not have a job, and she's going to get pregnant and quit her job. You should maybe discuss all of this with your partner instead of just making brain plans for what you're going to do or make her do for you. But I digress. Of course, Nick wouldn't ask what his wife wants. What is he, a freaking woman respecter? Enter Laura's mind, and she is daydreaming about Nick being her spouse. Quote, on her part, Laura appreciated Flint's passion for the same causes she believed in, sexual, racial, and economic equality, a better word than the loaded justice. In Laura's view, for instance, the two white women who invest in the burrito stand should be celebrated for their female empowerment, not damned for cultural appropriation. She feared that her side had begun to devour its own, providing more ammunition to astute opponents such as her fiancé. She gulped at her own casual definition of Nick. Being his wife would be absurd, given his expectations of a woman's role, basically housewifery. Images of herself flashed through her mind, in a bathrobe at the home of a white-fenced cottage, kissing a business-suited Nick goodbye. At the cottage's kitchen table, feeding spoonfuls of baby food to an adorable infant in a high chair while a cute girl of 3 played with a bowl of Cheerios. in sweat clothes, vacuuming the cozy living room, in a slinky blue dress, holding a martini glass to a coated Nick, in a child's bedroom doorway, smiling as Nick is reading to the little girl, The Little Mermaid. In case you needed to know how Laura's mind changed so quickly as it did, quote, Laura tried to frown at the last image, but couldn't. Instead, the identical smile came to her in the present. It dawned on her that the last 10 days had been the headiest that she'd ever known. And yes, the best sex. Could wedlock to Nick continue the rite of passion for years to come? So, the book acknowledges that it hasn't been even 2 weeks yet. I guess all you need to change a feminist woman's mind, a Harvard Ivy League school's woman's mind, is the best dicking down she has ever received. Who would have thought that the main character of this book specifically has the golden PP that you need to take this country back from Hollywoke, to make women housewives again? Get the golden D. Who needs respect? Who needs partnership? Just dick her down with the golden D. Meanwhile, in all of this, as they're marching and waiting for the protest to happen, Flint, the girl who was initially interested in betting the professor, is now giving Laura her backstory and birth name because she's using a new name as a gender neutral person. It says she, but it also says gender neutral. I don't know. I don't trust this author with anything. Anyway, quote, yeah, that's how they get you. Good looking boys like your ex. They come on all nice and warm, and then once you hook up with them, they turn into possessive dicks. I had my fill of them in my teens when I didn't know any better. Laura turned on her mental recorder, lacking a digital one. Tell me about it, Flint. I was a waitress at a biker bar in Glen Echo. I thought that I was hot stuff for hooking up with a gang leader, till he got me pregnant, me and another girl. He wanted a bunch of kids just to show off his male prowess to the gang. When I aborted mine, he went nuts and beat me up bad. At the women's shelter I went to, I read shit that I never learned in high school, how white male privilege oppresses women and minorities, and so I decided to fight it. Made myself harder, smarter, even changed my name to reflect the tough gender-neutral me, and I got into this school. What's your birth name? Margaret. Hale. And then Nick is just working himself up to go and deal with the protest, with the violent protesters, and it's some I'm a hero energy going on. Nick is then getting to know these violent guys who are going to crash the protest tonight, and funny that they're all liberal, but also all agree with Nick about a lot of things, like you can't get into Hollywood unless you do progressive favors because it's all rigged against you, or that the transgender bathroom stuff they're against. They might be violent and they might be opposing this chick, but they all agree that Nick is right. The troublemakers also give their final hurrah, quote, Alice Lassiter just left her Shady Grove Hotel. She'll be here at the university in half an hour. Both campus entrances will also be blocked by student protesters, so she won't go far before we get to her. But silencing one vile speaker isn't enough. All fascists from the president on down must be taught a lesson that their efforts to pollute young minds with old and decadent ideas will be met by force. We are the force, and tonight the resistance will become the offensive. Nick informs his connections about how many violent protesters there will be, and that there will in fact be violence, as if they didn't already know that. At the protest, Laura is talking to the professor that she seduced before everything goes down, and he is diatribing conservative conspiracy theories again. Quote, Alice Lassiter is a Trojan horse, a traitor to her gender and sexual orientation, and a pawn of the Christian right. Repulsing her will show the regressive fools that Judgment Day has come early, not from their mythical god, but from their antichrist, that we diabolical progressives. Everything they hold sacred in this country will be remade in our image. Black, brown, female, poor, and queer. America will be hell on earth for conservatives. Isn't it wonderful? So on this note, I would like to ask, is it a rich elite or the rich elites like the George Soros that's behind this, or is it the poor masses that are destroying America according to this? It's also funny that the conservatives believe everybody that is against them is poor and basically everything that is just not white, but then also the implication here is that white men are the only ones who are not poor because it's being remade in the image of everybody who's not a straight white male. The rampage goes down, and I know that there is like there's all of this other stuff like scaffolding behind it, but then if this is just generalizing whatever their argument is, that they are speaking to people who already agree with them, so they're shorthanding everything because this isn't for anybody except for the people who would applaud at it because they can fill in all the information themselves, and it's otherwise just generalizing talking points that it is not actually exploring in any way. The rampage goes down with a bunch of violence. It is stopped. The speaker speaks in the end, and the lady cop will be fine as the school is punished since it receives government money and it was actively not allowing free speech. With the speech stuff done, Nick returns to his CIA bro at the frat house on another conspiracy. That fat guy? What's his weight got to do with anything? It's how he throws it around, said Nick. Fat. PHAT is his progressive Hollywood action time. Showbiz hopefuls got to join it if they want to move up in big time. Why? That's un-American. Downright McCarthyite, I'd say. Funny, Hollywood keeps making movies about the horrors of the blacklist, and yet they've created another one. Shout out conservatives, writers, actors, producers, and keep the industry left-wing. More Clooneys, fewer Eastwoods. PC Harry, said Nick. I'll see what I can dig up, Leigh. The two of them then head to Nick's house after saying their goodbyes to their frat bros and telling the playboy frat bro to wait for love and make sex trade with his partner for a lifetime. And then Nick writes his story. Laura says that she is so impressed with him that they run off to have more sex. They then get their story in and are upset that parts of it have been changed by the Washington Post because they didn't want to publish it in its full version. And one of the things that they took out was George Soros. Quote, "Looks like they've dumped us into Yellen's piece," said Nick, continuing to scroll. They read the article together, getting increasingly upset. Some of their more newsworthy findings and quotes remained, only diluted by meandering wordage. The story still insculptated Dr. Ballard, faulted President Harris, and praised Chief Bosco, but it obscured the militant leftists' thread that Nick and Laura had exposed. Laura commendably was against her own side. She let go of Nick's arm. "They killed our baby, Nick. Certainly split it. It names the Guevarans, but not the commie billionaire behind them, Gregory Lanos. It quotes Ballard's channel, Gandalf, but leaves out his anti-Christian rant on the balcony, and it practically blames Lassiter for starting the riot. Welcome to Media Bias 101. Now you know what us conservatives have had to put up with all these years." Nick is also telling Laura that she needs to dump her boyfriend, so they've been banging behind his back and he's been proposing to marry her while she's been in a relationship. He doesn't even use "we can get together when you break it off." He just says with this, he doesn't even tell her that they can get together when she breaks it off. He's just okay with being the other man. It's really detestable and despicable. And I don't know what values Nick actually is supposed to have that are good ones. Laura's kind of freaking out over this, and Nick is like, "Don't fight it, Laura. Become a trad wife." Quote, "I just need to spend some more time apart from you to sort it out. You want me to be sure of us, don't you?" "You're sure, Laura. You're just scared." "Of you?" asked Laura, trying to sound dismissive. "No, you know damn well I'd never hurt you." "Of losing your religion." "I'm an atheist." "That's your religion," said Nick. "The key to the progressive kingdom. And I'm the heretic, come to make you question your devotion to it. Then what would become of your crusade?" So he thinks that she can only date him if she dumps her politics. So she has to change for him because he doesn't believe that she has her own opinions anyway. They all are just influenced by other people. But that specifically being not a conservative has to do with not being a Christian. And once you become a conservative, then you have to become a Christian. Like the two are tied, as if there aren't conservatives who are not Christian, and as if there aren't Christians who are more liberal leaning. This is such a dichotomy that is like, you either be me and you get saved, or you don't be like me and you're going to hell. That is just another way of what this is saying. Like, what else am I supposed to take from this? And also, to equate political belief to religious belief also shows a deeper problem here with the perspective of this, because politics is not religion, and it shouldn't be. And if it is for you, like, no wonder you think everybody is going to hell if they don't agree with you. But he's manipulating her. The way that he is talking to her in this is very sussy. She's like, "Look, I need some space to think about this." And he's like, "No, you don't. Just do it. Just take the plunge." Shh. Laura showers and leaves to go and do errands to get a little bit of space. Nick then talks to people about the paper to see why his true version of his story wasn't published. The editor says that that the guy in charge would have been threatened by it because it was better written than any story that guy has ever written, ever. Wow, 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 wow. Of course, he is a better writer at 22 as an intern than some head guy at a newspaper in Washington Post. Of course! The first story that this guy covers, basically, that's not like a special interest piece like the veteran. That's what, his third paper, because he's got the, well, technically his fourth paper if you pretend that Laura didn't write the one on the band, because he did the one about the vets, and then he did the one about the immigrants, and then he did this one, and it's better than anything his managing editor has written in years. Crazy. Why wouldn't he be better? I bet he shoots lasers from his eyes and cooks bacon perfectly too, every single time. What isn't Nick a wunderkind of? Meanwhile, Laura is over here thinking about her feelings. Quote, Laura understood. As long as she was with Nick, he would protect her with his life. The absence of any danger hardly mattered. Only their bond did, and only she could break it. If and when she did, Nick would shut her out, no matter how much it hurt him. She'd read about such men in books, like Dennis Finch Hatton in Out of Africa, but never known any. Now one loved her, and perhaps she did him, against her ideological grains. She was in a classical head versus heart dilemma, her body clearly on her heart's side. Laura then was working with Sarah, who is asking where she has been staying because she has missed her, and she learns that Laura has feelings for Nick, so she presents Laura with this op-ed quote. Here's an op-ed we're running next week. Rick Spencer sent it to Lauenstein. She thinks it's satire. What is it? Asked Laura. Enemy propaganda, said Sarah. She began reading aloud on the screen. The new man, formerly known as a wimp, has been around since the Genesis. Adam could have stayed in Eden after his girlfriend took a bite of the apple. Instead, he took the fall for her and got booted out of paradise. Today, women are still driving men out of their minds. That could be their mistress' plan. Make men crazy enough so they'll be able to understand women. My God, said Laura, seething. Who wrote that? Take a guess. Laura gasped. Nick? So if you needed any more evidence that Nick has zero respect, and you don't have to just, like, whatever, have all of your bad opinions, but he's sitting here lying to her about how he feels so that he can get into her pants and manipulating her at every end, and he's saying, I love you, when he obviously doesn't love her. He's a piece of shit, and this is not satire. This is him literally writing this, and Adam did not fall because he took the fall for his girlfriend. Eve was, one, his wife, and two, they took the fall together. But yeah, sure, this is just so full of hatred. It's garbage. It's disgusting. Laura, run. Nick is complaining about modern movies again and how lame they are as he sits in the theater. He's with Hugh, the womanizer, and they're waiting for Warren, the guy who was dumped by super hot Tammy, big-breasted, gonna change the gays woman. Hugh is going on after every woman that they come across because he preys on them. And he's like, look, see that single woman over there with her child? She's a single mother. She'll be so easy to bang. And if she has a husband, well, she's easy to bang because she's not going to tell her husband that she cheated on him. And if she is a single mother, well, if I sleep with her and then run off, then she's not going to say anything because she's got other obligations. So that makes her a great target for me to go and use and then just throw away and never see again. When they finish the movie and then go to food, he then starts hitting on the waitress and lying about his credentials in order to get her in bed, saying that he wants to interview her. Meanwhile, Nick tells Warren that if he wants to get with Tammy, then he needs to stop acting like a friend and go and sleep with somebody else, because women don't understand when you get friend zoned that it hurts. And so show her that when she puts you in friend zone, then you're really going to friend zone her and you're going to move on without her. Warren says that he can't do that because he's not that kind of guy. Laura confronts Nick about his article, which is in fact his, quote, "You should be quite pleased with yourself," said Laura. "They're running it in Outlook, courtesy of your rising status at the Post. You'll forgive me if I don't congratulate you, much less kiss you for it." Laura, listen to me. I wrote that the night of your party, before you came over. Remember how it was? Phil and your friends tried to fumigate me like a rodent, and you were right there with them. I was hurt, but my piece was meant to be funny. The joke was on me and women like me, but you left out one cliche. It's a woman's prerogative to change your mind, or, in my case, return to sanity. And I have, Nick, about you. Laura, please, we can talk about this back at my... Let me finish. I'll tell you in a moment. I fell for you in a moment of weakness. It'll never happen again. I'm going back to Phil and our lost causes. When I see you at work, I'll be cordial. But know this, Nick. I'd prefer to never see you again. I can't believe that, Nick said. You will eventually. Didn't our time together mean something to you? It did. A huge mistake. I love you. That's your problem, said Laura. Nick winced, but Laura wasn't done with him. Has it ever occurred to you, Nick, that the thing that you're proudest of is what you should be most ashamed of? Your maleness? You know, what's most annoying about this is that there are so many things that you can have a serious conversation about, that you can show true perspective about and true conflict and like the union of showing somebody else your perspective and truly being understood. But this author has so little respect for others, so little interest in investigating and understanding others, that they can't even address Laura's emotions with legitimacy. Like her being pissed off at Nick, one, for showing up at her party like he did, two, for punching her partner like he did, and then three, for using it to write this paper to just call everybody a wimp and to say women only exist to get men in trouble and drive them crazy. Like, why would you be with somebody like that? She has legitimate feelings, and he didn't tell her about this paper for a reason and wanted to manipulate her into being okay with it, and she wasn't having it. However, instead of legitimately recognizing what Laura's issues are, and there are issues with that paper, there are issues with her feeling used by him, with her feeling disrespected by him, being just a body to him. Instead of that, the author just erases it, generalizes it down to the issue of being Nick's maleness. The issue isn't Nick's maleness. There isn't a problem with being a male. There isn't a problem with being masculine or less masculine or expressing who you are in different ways if you're a man or if you're a woman. There are different things. Nick's issues are that he is an asshole who uses other people, sees other people as nothing more than tools to get what he wants, and words as tools to manipulate people into getting what he wants, and he's done it to even her. She feels used, she feels betrayed, she feels lied to, she feels disrespected, but of course he has to throw around buzzwords to not take Laura seriously for dressing Nick down for what he did, which includes writing an insulting piece literally about Laura and not even telling her and not even saying, I'm sorry. He goes, it's a joke, man! I say repeal the 19th, but it's a joke, but like repeal the 19th. Now broken up with, Nick wanders around until he is at Lincoln Memorial and prays to freaking President Lincoln for guidance on dealing with women, because he's like, brother, I know that you had an easier time abolishing slavery than talking with women, than dealing with women. Are you sure, bro? Because it seems like Nick hates freedom in general because it gives freedom to the slaves and the women. So like, why does he celebrate Lincoln? Is it just because his political talking heads say that Lincoln's a good guy? Because I don't see anything that Nick does that would make him admire Abraham Lincoln, honestly. Quote, hello, Abe, you helped Mr. Smith come to Washington. How about me? Though I'm not really a Frank Capra guy, more Howard Hawks, my trouble's pretty silly compared to all of yours. Okay, it's a girl. The most aggravating, wonderful girl I've ever met. I know. You had an easier time abolishing slavery than dealing with your women. Maybe that's my destiny, too. Putting down sedition over love. In your day, it was the North against the South. Today, it is left versus right, with Laura on the wrong side. But unlike our troops, I can't just shoot the enemy unless I can. Maybe Lord Lytton was right, that the pen is mightier than the sword. Then my laptop would be even mightier. Yes, my God, this will be my Sherman's march. They drew first blood, taking Laura from me. Now it's my turn. I'll slaughter every one of their sacred cows. The show must go on. I'm sorry, Abe. I guess you're not too fond of shows. It's so cringe. It is so cringe, and I can't stop thinking about the reviews that bolster this as being good for any political persuasion and understanding. It's a literal insult. Also, like, I know that he is trying to do a boomer-esque Facebook joke with women, am I right? But Nick has given us zero positive anything about his character. He also proudly brags about being a sexist constantly. So how am I supposed to not take that seriously? I know. I've got no sense of humor here. Great, awesome. Now that that's handled, why is this book so bad? Also, people did not take Laura from Nick because of political persuasion. She dumped him because he's an asshole, but he has no ability to self-reflect, so he blames it on everybody else and is like, you know what, I'll just kill him and take her. Be a better person, Nick. Oh, you can't. You lack the ability. I'm sorry. It pisses me off so much. It pisses me off so much, and this is supposed to be an idealized character because he never reflect on anything, and everything revolves around him. Everything is everybody else's problem, and he is just the victim, and he is going to be the hero against everybody working against him. Literally billionaires in Hollywood and everybody working against him. So Leigh contacts Nick about the movie organization and forced diversity rules about strong women, men only showing interest in women's bodies in movies, that's not allowed anymore, representation, and laundry lists of other complaints conservatives usually have. Also complains that cops and military are strictly conservative outfits, and that Christian characters can't be showed in a positive light, only neutral or negative. After getting this information, all Nick can say is, "I'm taking down your terrible side, Laura." He doesn't like her. He just sees her as someone to conquer, and that she is a hot trophy to prove that he beat the libs. Nick calls his boss to be excused from work so that he can chase a lead. The lead is a writer who got his book optioned for a screenplay, but the screenplay never made it, and they're assuming it's because of political bigotry in Hollywood. Quote, "I guess Hollywood deserves a good smackdown. For rampant sexual abuse? Nah, for making crappy movies." I know, again, it's another stupid Facebook level joke, but again, we're dealing with movies are more important than women having just basic being able to work in the workplace. Like, you're more offended by crappy movies existing than sexual abuse. Got it. Like, it's not a joke, because he is constantly talking about how he is a sexist. I don't know how we're supposed to be rooting for him. This is nearly the end of the book, and he's still just a shitty person, and he's always going to be a shitty person. See, you see this? I'm swearing now. Nick is then on his way to interview the guy, and thinks about how he could pretend to be a liberal to get Laura back, leading into more of just what the author thinks liberals believe, and that he obviously is cool with manipulation. But this is his laundry list of what liberals believe is just what conservatives tell other conservatives about what liberals believe. And it's all generalizations. Quote, "It would be so easy to be liberal," he thought. "Just pretend that terminating unborn life isn't killing babies, but a woman's right, that blacks are helpless victims repressed by past slavery and modern racism rather than absence of fathers in the home and needing government welfare to subsist, that there's no physical difference between men and women who can just switch genders like socks, that guns commit murder for their own volition yet are opposed to saving lives for some reason, that America abolishing its nuclear arsenal will inspire worldwide disarmament, that taxing carbon emissions will cool any climate other than the economic one, that capitalism is unfair but socialism is utopianist. Never mind Cuba, Venezuela, North Korea, and everywhere it's been tried." After several sleepless hours, Nick had reached the same conclusion. His convictions built Western civilization, Laura's would collapse it, and yet he almost longed to be on the road to chaos with her. This is why you'll never get along with others, by the way. You don't actually listen to people, you're not interested in understanding people, and you only talk to people about politics in order to try to smack them down with your point of view because you think everybody is stupid or evil. Now Nick travels, and he is reading a book by an informant that he is going to interview. Yes, this book takes a couple of pages of an intermission to read a book about a PI going to a strip club to find a runaway 16-year-old or 17-year-old. Quote, "Nick paused the audiobook to analyze what he had just heard. It was all well enough written, if deliberately Chandleresque, like so many mystery writers tried to be. The hook was original, a moral hero acting as the worldly knight for a priest bond by the seal of the confessional. But more to the point, it was just the first chapter. The Redeemer defiled 5 of the 10 guidelines and the fat compliance degree. I can't believe that a moral hero acting as a worldly knight for a priest is such an original idea. It's never been done before." The point of this is then to compare it to the rules that Nick was told by Leigh. Quote, "Nick checked the degree on his cell phone. Number 4, no sympathetic conservative characters, while the hero, Dan Burnside, certainly is just that. Number 5, no sympathetic Christian characters. Father Patrick Cork certainly qualifies as that, if only by reference so far. 6, no overt female sexuality. It takes place in a strip club full of hot women. 8, no ogling by the hero. Burnside ogles all of the women, including the young girl that he rescues, which also violates number 10, that a heroine must rescue herself." So I should note that the heroine in this was mentioned to be just barely 18, but was 17 when he took the job. And he went into this place knowing that she is in danger and is ogling this woman And it's also bragging about that he is conservative, and he wants to pretend that he is not a pig. I'd like to put it out there that just because people don't like what you write doesn't make it a conspiracy. While there are biases against people because we all have different opinions, like the person who wrote this is going to have a bias against me. I've had people read my work and think that Joey is anti-police because my book is some kind of anti-police number, as opposed to, Joey having opinions and Casey having opinions, though they have never read up to Casey. But Casey's got legitimate reasons in the story to hate the cops. He's got really legitimate reasons to be not friendly with the cops because he's got stuff to hide. Joey has just been through stuff and she doesn't trust the cops, but part of her story is learning that she has the chip on her shoulder. So you go through the story and her opinion of Detective Stone changes. But people will read the first one and see Joey doesn't like cops and be like, this book is anti-police and making an anti-police statement. And it's like, that's your brain worm. I'm sorry. That is your brain worm. I know. And look at me saying this, but this book is totally political. And you can disagree with me. Obviously, I'm just sharing my opinion on this and I'm not whatever. I'm just one reader. Go ahead and read this book. Come to your own conclusions at the end of it of what you see here. I'm doing my best to share with you what I saw. But just because you can't or didn't get published, and I've heard this so many times by people claiming that there is something against them, and it's of all demographics. I've talked about it on this channel. It's not always a conspiracy. Now, sometimes there are biases, but there's also, if you spend all of your time decreeing certain people online and calling them stupid and saying that they're working against you or they're evil, then yeah, they're not going to work with you when you want to work with them because you've been insulting them the entire time. You don't have any respect for them as a business partner, so no, they're not going to work with you. One thing that I want to point out is the number of people that show up on specifically right-wing books to get at me for critiquing them because they believe that I'm some politically raging person is asinine when I have almost 200 reviews on this channel of varying subject matters, and you have to actually listen to get my opinions. I'm not specifically leaning anything. I talk about things on a one-to-one basis, and sometimes circumstances, even on a same issue, changes because of the details in it. There is no one size fits all for anything. And that's one of the things I talked earlier about how I don't believe in political talk. I believe in talking about people and circumstances and what we're dealing with because politics erases the nuance of the human experience. But so just because somebody's not getting published does not mean that the author is being biased against. I heard the author of Homesteader also say that, and I'm sorry, it's not because you're a white male. It's because the book is not good. The grammar was not good. In this book, it's not because you're a white male. It's because it's a political diatribe with no story, and the market for this doesn't matter. Nobody is buying this, but for affirmation therapy to feel better about themselves. Like you said it yourself in the reviews where it was conservatives will clap at this. And it's only some conservatives because not all conservatives agree with this stuff. But that's all that this is. So Nick gets to the writer's house and sees the Christian floor mat outside the door. And again is yeah, I can see why Hollywood would hate him. He's a godly man. Yeah, writing about sexualizing every single woman, including a 17-year-old stripper. I could see just how godly this bro is. Look, on top of that, if you have it so figured out that it is so easy to just scam your way into Hollywood by writing the woke stuff, then why don't you do it until you've got enough fuck you money to do whatever projects that you want? Because a lot of people do it that way. Just go for it. It's all excuses is what it is. Talking to this guy, Nick asks how he got his movie deal because his book is obviously so original. So but it's also breaks so many rules. So talk about it. Quote, "Let me see," Nick said. "Christian male hero, damsel in distress, sultry femme fatale, old school morals, pretty traditionalist stuff. So how'd you get a movie deal? Hollywood's PC land, after all." He wrote his movie, but the movie option fell through because the men were too manly, his women were too sexy, and his priest was too godly. This is just conservative victimhood wet dream happening right here. He says his book didn't get turned into a movie because he was told all of these criticisms that basically gut his book from what it was, and he didn't make those changes. Quote, "I wrote The Redeemer as a counter to the mainstream culture and its full frontal assault on basic truths and faith. In real life, men are dogs and women sexually alluring. That doesn't mean girls can't be smart or tough or physically strong to a point, only that their sexuality is immutable. As for Christianity, it's been a positive force in the world for 2,000 years and not divisive, except to secular progressives. I couldn't betray my artistic vision for stardom, so I killed the deal. Fat would have anyway. They don't want my story told, and I have more of them to tell." So this author does believe that men in real life are just dogs. Like, that's it. That's what he thinks of other men. That all women have to offer is sexuality. So I guess I'm SOL. There's no purpose! That's, I guess, why I get called a man, right? But another dumb statement in this is it saying Christianity has never been divisive, but to secular progressives. Okay, talk to me about the Romans, please. Talk to me about the Crusades, the Inquisition, Martin Luther, and the Protestants versus Catholicism. Like, are you for real? Do you know anything about your own belief? Secular progressives are the only ones that have ever had a problem with Christians? Are you joking? It makes me think that anybody who spouts this kind of stuff only believes what they believe because they don't know anything. They're just spouting what they were already told, and they literally don't know anything because Martin Luther and the Protestants versus Catholicism, even without going into the Romans that crucified Christ or the Crusades or the Inquisition, you have the split between the Protestants and the Catholics, where the Protestants didn't want to do the hierarchy and the rules that had Catholicism and went in a separate direction. That's the whole thing. And there was a big uproar with it. There is such negative opinion between the Irish Catholic and the Scottish Protestants. Nick then calls the movie studio behind some of the censorship and threatens that he is going to do a hit piece on them, so they better respond before he decides to publish it. He's lying, of course, just to get somebody in charge, which they do panic call him back, even though he's got like zero pull on anything. And the guy at the movie studio just straight up admits to everything, because why would anybody in this book have any tact whatsoever? They don't. Somehow they all got into positions of power, but they're all freaking idiots. Quote, "It started right after the election," said Weinberg, "almost as therapy. You have no idea how traumatized people out there were, like the big one had just hit. Beverly Hills and Malibu were Zombieland secretly. I thought that we deserved it for being so contemptuous of the opposition. Most of middle America. Yeah, and I kept my thoughts to myself, but Dwight, he took it personally. Melnick. He'd been injecting progressive content into all of these pictures for some time, even his popcorn fare. Venus Squadron and Star Force 3, Nick said. You caught that, huh? The team of alien warrior women who rescued the enslaved men? Pretty obvious. Not to kids. No, to them it's indoctrination, said Nick. Then there's the Star Force arch enemy, the Gorlons, cannibalistic mutants led by a mad high priest to a dead god whom he claims will come back again. Subtle. This is just a generic plot. What are you talking about? It's not anti-Christian. It's not anti-man. Xena, warrior princess, was not anti-man. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was not anti-man. The Powerpuff Girls were not anti-man just because they were strong female characters. The fact that this is just boiling it down to if you have these things, then you can't. It's saying you can't write these things. This is what pisses me off about this sort of argument and these sort of politics in general, is it is saying, hey, we're freedom. We are the freedom people. We believe in freedom. And like, it had a whole thing with freedom of speech with Alice Lassiter, right? But here it is saying, no, you're not allowed to write those types of stories. Those are bad stories. Those are indoctrination. You have to have the pervy detective who eyeballs and ogles and gets an erection for every single female that he sees. Who cares if she's 13? That's just manhood. That's just heterosexuality to the max. I'm sorry, other heterosexuals. If you're not this guy, he might throw a little tantrum at your progressive heterosexuality or otherwise. But, like, it's so garbage because this has been part of the whole thing I've been talking about the last couple of years on and off, when they're pushing female characters can only look one certain way to be this certain kind of attractive and not have other character traits, cannot look any other way. And nobody is saying that there is anything wrong with attractive female characters, but it's just that not every person is the exact same. Different backgrounds, different personalities, different stories, different skills, doing different things with those stories that affect the appearance. But this is saying, no, you can only have these things or else it's indoctrination. So what are you doing, Nick? Is yours not indoctrination when you're saying this is the only type of story that can be told so that you can see this in a good light, this in a good light, this is a bad light, this is a bad light? Really? Because you've shown throughout this book what you think of other people. And then this book dares to have Nick lecture this guy about morals. Probably, and this is an assumption here, with everything that the author wishes that he could have said to Hollywood. Quote, why? Why are the richest, prettiest, most privileged people in the country such left-wing zealots? Don't you realize in the kind of world you're pushing, you guys will go first? Probably right. Maybe because we live outside the rules of morality and tradition. So we pretend that that's the key to happiness, even though very few out here are happy. A lot are empty inside and resentful of those who believe in something greater than themselves. But you can't match something with nothing. So they latch on to every new idea that comes along and keep preaching to the choir, said Nick. Most of the country between California and New York voted for the president, yet all you do is bash him. Think there may be a disconnection? More like an echo chamber. We hear the same progressive chatter over and over again until outside voices are just noise pollution. Your box office numbers are way down. Why do you keep making movies that turn off mainstream Americans when it is so clearly bad for business? Because the fools have to be woken, said Weinberg. That's the general idea here. But who the hell are you people? You're entertainers, jesters. What gives you the intellectual or moral weight to tell hard-working, church-going, child-raising folks how to live and think? To understand that, you would have to be one of us. Every day we're told how wonderful we are by wannabes and never-weres, clinging to our ladder of success. But in our gut, we know that there are, but for the grace of God, if you believe in God, go we. The more insecure we get, the more virtue signaling we do. What happens, said Nick, if you ignored fat compliance degree, say, turned a popular romance novel into a film? There's one on the New York Times bestseller list every week, all with the same covers. A lovely lass fleeing from the castle, with well-built, handsome devil and amorous pursuit. A lot of women must still be eating those books up. As if romance movies are not made and romance books are not being freaking jacked on by every conservative right now that pays attention to book talk conversation. This conversation is so unbelievably unrealistic, with the guy that works in Hollywood being like, you're right, and we are such idiots, and we all should be, bowing to God, but we are just too proud. You're just too right. Nick writes his story with all of the proof that he wants, listens to the rest of the book on his way back, and thinks longingly about how much he really wants Laura, but it's really just her ass. Someone at the paper tries to stop Nick's article from going through because he's part of the left-wing conspiracy, and this fails, and he is put on leave. Nick's paper is going to be published as it is. Nick is still moping about Laura while he is on his way to a Hollywood party. His friend comforts him by saying, quote, "Not with those gills," said Nick, adding to a hard-boiled tone, "Women are the most numerous creature on Earth, next to insects." If you're comparing women to insects, like, what do you expect? Really? It's like saying, okay, all of these women hate men and they're all saying these bad things about men all the time, and then the women are complaining about being single. How about you treat people with respect, with common decency? And you don't, because you don't think about anybody but yourself. I know I'm repeating myself here. It's just so frustrating to see this. And they think that they deserve the world for this. He's not going to change his opinion. He's never going to apologize to Laura for the way that he's thought about her or treated her or acted. She's the one that comes crawling back to him at the end. We're almost there. Don't worry. At the party, Warren gets drunk over how upset he is that he got dumped by big-breasted Tammy, and he is throwing bottles. He is taken out of the party because he is dangerous. Hugh and Nick try to control him. This is after a long talk of telling him to just get with any girl possible that is at the party, because that's what women are for, am I right? Now we're on to Sarah and Laura, who is at Sarah's house, and it's just more women writing informed by pornos, where Sarah is talking very carefully to Laura about Nick and putting the moves on her and just grabbing her breasts as they talk about Nick and all the feelings that she has for Nick. And then Sarah kisses her and Laura is like, "Look, you're so nice, but I'm just not into that." And Sarah is like, "Okay, I understand. I shot my shot, but that's just how it is." Then Laura hears that Phil is also supposed to be at this comic book party, Hollywood party that Nick is at, and she wants to stop Phil from running into Nick and then danger happening. So they decide the two of them need to get to that party to intercept Nick before Phil runs into him. Now back to Nick. He's at the party. Tammy comes over and he can't stop checking her out, even though he knows that's one of his friend's ex-girlfriends and he's supposed to be talking to her. He talked about the bro code, and Nick doesn't care about the bro code. That was total BS, BT dubs. So he's checking out this woman because he just freaking can't help it, apparently. He can't respect his friend at all. And so he's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about Warren." And she's like, "Why don't we go upstairs and We can talk in private. Quote, she led Nick to a staircase and up the steps. Following her, Nick couldn't help noticing her firm buttocks and great legs showcased by the skimpy cougar woman bodysuit, tights, and boots. Tanita Tikaram's Twist in My Sobriety began playing on the music system. The thing that she asks him is what he sees when he looks at her, and all he comes up with is a hot babe. She's like, no, like, what do you see in me? And he's like, a babe? No, like, what do you see? A hot babe? And she is so disappointed because nobody ever sees how smart she is what she says. Then she gets super excited that Nick says that she is not just a bimbo. She's the one that had to say that she is actually smart before he was like, oh yeah, right, you're smart. He is so full of shit. He is so full of it. He is just repeating what other people want so that he can manipulate them. And everyone in this book just exists for Nick's approval, especially the women. And then the next conservative stereotype comes out. Quote, let's talk about Warren. Warren, Tammy said melancholy. You see, how the other copy girls shun me, Sarah pretty blatantly, Laura's always polite to me, but I can sense her disapproval. She can't control it. I'd love to hang out with her outside of work. Can't say a reverse is true. Sisterhood has its limits. But you guys made me feel welcome, and you're so comfortable around each other, unlike us girls. Laura holds that against us, said Nick, male bonding. Well, I like it, and being with you all. But there was only one way that I could fit in. You'll never be one of the boys. Yeah, said Tammy. Only kind of a cheerleader. You got the right attitudes. I know. I was a cheerleader captain at UNC. No wonder they won the ACC last year, said Nick. There's a little sex in every cheer. You can't separate the two, or cheer for any one player on the team. Afraid Warren caught the full wallop. I like Warren, just not that way. So women can't stand each other and hate men bonding with one another because they're actually jealous that men can have friendships and women can't have friendships because women are just too catty to be friends. I have to apologize to all of my female friends now that I guess I don't actually like any of you and don't actually understand friendships because women, am I right? Women can't do friendships. I've not been this frustrated. I say I've not been this frustrated with a book in a long time, but this is a very specific way. It is just so actually hateful to everybody that it talks about. The men, the women, everybody. And it thinks that it is a moral king of whatever. Then you get this garbage. Anyway, by the way, in case you were wondering, yes, this leads to Nick having sex with Tammy because he can't help himself. He's supposed to be there talking to her on Warren's behalf, and she hits on him, and he has no boundaries and doesn't stop her and gets his pipe laid, and her lips are described as being gelatinous. Weird. Of course, the pipe is being laid when Sarah and Laura show up. Warren is crying outside. They all run upstairs looking for Nick and come in on him getting plowed by Tammy. Quote, she was the most natural, beautiful woman Nick had ever known, let alone made love to, including Laura. Her luxurious blonde hair, gorgeous face, large, firm breasts, and lithe body combined to give him guilty pleasure. Only her extreme desirability could have provoked a physical response in him despite his broken heart. It was like being ravished by Sharon Stone in Basic Instinct. Nick almost welcomed the ice pick. But what came next also hurt. I have a feeling that Sharon Stone is somebody special to this author in that specific situation. This is just so gross. I only have 5 pages left of these review notes, and I'm just so disgusted right now. Maybe I'm being over dramatic, but this is terrible. This is so terrible. Anyway, she is so pretty and better than even freaking Laura, even though Laura he had the chance to be with Tammy at the beginning of this before Laura because Tammy was throwing herself at him from the very beginning, but instead he went with Laura who hated him because she was somebody to conquer and Tammy was not. Because obviously, Tammy was already chasing him, so he went after Laura, who was not, and who was taken. Everyone scatters after seeing Nick in this position. Laura leaves with Phil, her ex-boyfriend. Why? I don't know. They weren't even together. Phil might as well just not exist, but Nick needs another win for the author to write. Nick is obviously going to go chase after Laura because even though he was just getting plowed by a woman, he's like, but Laura matters more to me than the woman I was just under. Oh yeah, I gotta mention this. When Laura and Sarah first got to the party here, Sleazy Hugh started making comments about Sarah. Quote, good one, Sarah. Did I tell you about my lesbo fantasy? There are these two hot dykes dancing real close to one another, and I cut in, and one of them grabs me by the nuts while the other one... And this is important to bring up. So this happened before the whole Tammy incident. Laura and Sarah get there, and Hugh cuts in, and just, this is his normal conversation with them. And as they are leaving, or after Laura has already left, Hugh approaches Sarah again, because she's hanging out the party, drinking now, and he's like, "Buy you a drink?" Hugh asked in his normal voice. "Why the hell not?" said Sarah. She and Hugh started towards the coolers, and Sarah put an arm around his, pleasantly surprising Hugh. "About your lesbian fantasy. Tell me more." So again, we have the woman chasing the men, getting the approval of the men, and there is no reason for this from Sarah's perspective. He was just an asshole and sexualized her, and now all of a sudden she's interested in his nuts. Cool, because the sexualities aren't real, I guess. Every woman just exists for the sexualization of men. Switch now, all of a sudden, Nick is thinking of the one time Laura said that her boyfriend hit her and being like, can my feelings of righteousness supersede Laura's cruel breakup? She was not even cruel when she broke up. You wrote a paper about how she was stupid and manipulative and women just try to trick men into losing their minds. And she was upset by the words you said about her in your stupid article that you were publishing in secret and was like, I need some time. Then you went and slept with another chick and you were like, she was cruel. Nobody has been more cruel in this book than Nick. The senator doesn't even count. He's not an actual character. So Nick decides he is such a righteous person that he needs to go and make sure that Phil doesn't hit Laura. This is just an excuse so we can stalk Laura. For some reason, Phil has taken Laura to the senator's house because the senator needs help. So maybe he should have dropped her off somewhere and then gone to the senator's house instead of bringing her to the senator who has an underage girl with him that he gave drugs, and now Phil has to deal with that. And Nick is watching all this happening and saving it on his phone so that he can have a news story at the end. And Laura's out here agreeing to help keep it a secret because the politics are right. And so then Nick gets Laura to come to his house later by threatening her, saying that he has a scoop that's going to get her in trouble and he's giving her a chance to jump off the boat or to go down with it. And when she comes over, he tells her everything, and you get this cringy confession. "You're sick," Laura said. "I was," said Nick. "You cured me, cold turkey. I would have done anything for you, kissed off the scoop of a lifetime. Not anymore, sweetheart. Hawthorne's going down, and it's my gravy train running him over. I'm giving you a chance to climb aboard." Laura tried to glare at Nick, but her eyes began to moisten. Her lip quivered. Nick looked at her in surprise, against his will, sympathy. "Hold on now." Laura's steel dam broke. Laura started crying, completely, femininely. Nick had to restrain himself from going to her. "It's all my fault," she said. "I did this to you. I didn't know how to handle you. It was so hard holding everything together. My beliefs, my desires." "Stop that, will you? It's a dirty pool." "I fell for you too, Nick. For all the stupid reasons that you said. You're smart and funny and God help me, prime husband materials. Circa Fred Flintstone." "And you, Laura Croft," said Nick. "A swell pair we are." The conflict itself is stupid. He never would have forsaken a story for a girl. He made that very clear. So again, it's just lying to her to like tell her whatever. And they have sex, and he says at the end of it that he will keep the story and not publish it just for her, and that they are both willing to overlook sexual abuse when theoretically she's always had a thing against it. Otherwise, she would have slept with Todd at the beginning, wouldn't she? She would have just gone with it because it's like how things are. But this book can't actually follow through on anything. It is just all to make Nick look good and everybody else look bad. So he says that he is not going to. And he also says that, oh my gosh. And Laura also was like, and Nick compliments her on her body again, BT dubs. And she's like, yeah, my body is nice, but it's no comparison to Tammy. Why are we doing this? Why are we obsessed with other people, especially in intimate moments, especially when it's not important? We just have to remind, she was the hottest thing of hotness until he slept with Tammy. And now she is the hottest and she just needs to accept that she is number two, but he is sacrificing himself for her so that he can be number two and with her. Of course, it was all a lie. And it's never acknowledged that he was threatening her, by the way. So then Nick is making his travel plans to turn the story in, knowing that he lied to Laura in that last moment with her, and that he is going to make her mad, and that he is never going to get to see her ass again. Literally, quote, Nick saw the middle blind rise for a moment, then fall again. He forgot the rest of Keats' poem, but recalled another ode to the Grecian urn, ode to Laura's ass, he thought. He would miss seeing it again, let alone feeling it. He smiled bitterly, knowing what Laura would say if she could read his mind. Even his last thoughts of me were sexist. He doesn't like her. He doesn't love her. He doesn't care about her. This is just a momentary thing. What he's actually doing as he is thinking is going to Warren's house, and he is going to use this story, put Warren's name on it as well as his own, as a way to apologize to Warren for sleeping with his girl. And Warren forgives him because bros are not going to put hoes before them, and they can have friendships unlike women. The story breaks of the minor that the senator had over ODing and raping the girl, and he was a Democrat and presidential front runner, of course. And then at work, Laura confronts him because he lied to her, and Nick speaks out both sides of his face. Quote, "Since when are we two on the same page in your book? You both have the Pledge of Allegiance," Laura groaned. "Laura, listen to me. Wayne Hawthorne may be a senator, new man, but he's a freak. He's not fit to be a senator, let alone vice president. You've known that the whole time, but you were too close to it to kick his ass. So you spared me the decision, me being a girl, my girl. I could have been," Laura said. "I was ready to live with you. Sure, till the story got old. No thanks, Joan of Arc. I'd rather not have you at all than to be a martyr for the cause. You want to fight for something important? Start with the truth, wherever it leads. You see that's the difference between you and me. I'd nail Mike Pence in a minute if he did to any kid what Hawthorne did to Cindy. Maybe that's the feminist in me." Okay, I would like to bring a finer point to this, in that, ironically, I do have something to go with this specifically. Oh, shoot. My window! Republican laced his granddaughter's ice cream with cocaine and MDMA, cop says. James Edwin Yolke, chair of the Surrey County Board of Elections, was arrested after surveillance cameras caught him dropping 2 pills into 2 teenage girls' ice creams on August 8th, the Wilmington Police Department said. This was published BT Dubs on the 29th of August, 2025, so literally just days ago. The girls aged 15 and 16 did not consume the drugs. Yolke, 66, flagged down a police officer himself and said that the girls had found 2 hard objects in their ice cream that they had recently purchased at a Dairy Queen. The officer responded, seized the laced snacks, but Yoakley's story quickly unraveled. Security footage captured the grandfather dropping the pills into the granddaughter's food. Testing later revealed that the pills to be the street drugs known as Molly, which contained cocaine, and MDMA. Yoakley was charged with contaminating food and drink with a controlled substance, felony possession of Schedule 1 narcotics, and felony child abuse. He was released after posting a $100,000 bond. The Dairy Queen has not been accused of any wrongdoing. Yoakley was first appointed to Surrey County Board of Elections as a member in July of 2023. He was appointed chair of the county board earlier this year. He resigned from the board on Thursday. In the resignation letter, Yoakley appeared to say that he was innocent and claimed that he was certain that he would be exonerated of all accusations. So, we have a case of not a senator, but it is a similar story. And I'm not saying that this author isn't calling it out. I don't follow them on social media, but what I am saying is that stuff like this is not helpful. It's not compassionate. It's not thoughtful. It's not unique. What it does is it drives division, and it tries to demonize one side over another and stops acting like people are people. It says, you guys do all of the evil things. I do all of the good things. And that's why I carry the label that I carry. I don't like this game. I don't like this assuming of beliefs of someone different than you to demonize them to hell, of listening to your leadership in whatever cause you have because they have the right title and look, so you take their lack of understanding or attempt at understanding each other to paint everyone with the same brush of disdain. That's all that it is. This isn't real politics. This is just an excuse to be an asshole. And this is actually, maybe that is what real politics is and why I don't partake in any of it. But this is so dumb. I hate seeing this stuff. I hate seeing people be like, yes, I am the righteous person and everything that you do is evil and I am the right person and I am sacrificing everything. Show me in this book where Nick did anything that was not assholery. Anywhere. He could have even just been honest with Laura and said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, but I am a reporter and this is what I have to do. Instead, he lied to her because there is nothing in the story but constantly pawning everybody else and then pretending to be some righteous figure, martyr in the system. I'm so annoyed with this. We're almost at the end though. Also, Nick, you can't claim allegiance to Laura because that is what you did. You said you'd choose her over anything, but also you told her to get bent. This is just some dude trying to say that he screwed the hot chick in more ways than one. He's an asshole, and the book wanted him to be the one to end the relationship for the street cred so that he can get her back at the end because she comes crawling to him, which is exactly what happens. The next day at work, she finds out that Nick is going to go be a war correspondent, and she's worried that he's going to die, and so she runs off to meet him at the airport to stop him from going overseas to that job, and then says that she loves him, which also BT Dubs at some point, she said, I think it was after their last makeup sex, where she was like, I love you, and he was like, you know where I stand. He couldn't even say it. So it's all manipulation to get her to be baited to him. So anyway, they're standing there, and he's saying that he's going to stay. This is their confrontation at the end. Quote, "Are you going to get yourself killed just to haunt me, Nick?" "Fair is fair," said Nick. "You'll haunt me forever." "I can do a better job of it in the flesh." "Forever?" "Forever," said Laura. Nick smiled, and so did Laura. The American flag snapped loudly in the breeze, distracting Nick. He looked reverently up at it. Laura gulped with concern. Nick turned back to her. It's Hallmark. It's conservative Hallmark is what it is, and thank goodness it's over, but that's all that it is. I'm not going to waste too much time with the whole, rest of my comments for this story. Honestly, I don't even want to talk about the stupid hook or anything else because this book is not worth it. This is not a fiction novel. This is political propaganda that is just one way, and it is so disrespectful. I don't want to waste craft notes on this. So ultimately, we're just skipping to the end. What I see here, based on the comments and the writing and the reviews from those who love this, is intolerance, ignorance, and a complete unwillingness to try to understand anyone else. The people who agree with this are proud, close-minded, and lack emotional and intellectual capacity to consider other people's perspectives, investigate the world, and understand anyone else from other viewpoints. They just want to beat others into submission and believe that they are right in doing so. As long as they say their piece, then they win. And they'll say that they believe in freedom, but they continually want to shut you down in your expression in the smallest way. You'll see it even talking about painting your nails, or changing your hair color, or wearing piercings, or just not wearing makeup and looking like somebody on Fox News. It is so specific that it is beating people into telling stories a certain way, looking a certain way, and they mock everybody who doesn't. And they pretend that they are freedom lovers, but it's freedom if you choose to do what they want you to do. While they also agree with sexually harassing and stripping the rights of everybody that they don't want to listen to. But it's freedom, guys. I also find it fairly comical and ironic that the ideal person in this book is from Wyoming, one of the least populated states, and I've seen that stereotype before too, of conservatives wanting to go out and live in the middle of the woods with nothing. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to live in rural areas if that's your dream place, but this wants to pretend, this is specifically from the viewpoint of political opining, is if you want to pretend that you've got opinions that will benefit society, but you hate people so much you want to go and live in the woods and have nothing to do with people. I am not heavily into all people, but I do love people in general, and I want what's best for the majority of people. I want happiness for the majority of people. But if your whole thing is everybody sucks, I am the smartest, I am the best, and I'm also going to go live in a woods where I don't have to talk to people because people suck, it's just arrogant misanthropy masquerading as political enlightenment. And it's hilarious. You think you should be listened to. I hate insidious political garbage like this, where the whole point is to make political statements and to make people who disagree with them look evil or stupid or both. It's all about the messaging, and you can't get through a single conversation or interaction without someone trying to low-key rant at you or start a fight or vibe check. This isn't art. This isn't story. This is a straw man rant politically with a power fantasy and romance of converting a liberal woman to conservative ideals, who is also the hottest thing that has ever been hot. Everybody wants to jump his dick. And everything that you write is true because you wrote it that way, so nobody can argue with you and are constantly just patting you on the back for always being correct. So that is this book. I invite you to go and read it, get an idea of your own. If you think that I am just being biased, maybe I am, but I disagree with this sort of thing entirely. Does that mean it doesn't have a right to exist? No, I just find it, grossly offensive in a couple of different ways. And you can call me whatever you want. We are all entitled to our feelings and opinions. I have tried to put it that this is a specific mindset underneath conservatives, that I don't think that all conservatives think like this, but I do think that this opinion within the conservative circle, whatever, often gets ignored because it's very hard for people to criticize those that are within their field. And I say this not even as just a political thing. Is it's looked down upon to criticize literature if you're a writer, because it is seen as a conflict of interest. It is seen as unprofessional. And so a lot of people won't do it. And I think that also causes a lot of problems, because there's a lot of throwing everybody out if you have disagreement, rather than trying to better understand each other, even if there are differences of opinions in certain things, in a non-violent way, in a we're just dismissing people having humanity kind of way. But personally, I think that art and literature in general gives a great chance to get to experience and empathize and see lives that we never would have seen otherwise, to see opinions we've never seen otherwise. The same thing with nonfiction, which is less art and more historical, but still, I think that they are incredible means of communication that really can transport you into another person. Even with reading this, you get to see somebody's true feelings and experiences and how they've made decisions and created the world. But I just don't think that this is art. I don't think it respects art. I think it sees art as a tool, just in the same way that Nick sees every person in his life as a tool, language as a tool, and it doesn't respect anything but power. But that's the takeaway that I get from this book. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on this type of fiction, on this book. Have you read this book? Will you read this book? Looking forward in the comments down below. And yeah, let's try not to make it politically pointed at anybody but this type of person or what this book is showing, because a lot of people have valid opinions and reasons for the way that they believe, and I don't want to demonize those things. I just think that Nick is an asshole. Not because he's a conservative, but he uses the conservative title as an excuse for his being righteous, I think. Anyway, with that said, have a great weekend, and don't die.
To my children, Tommy, Ike, and Annabelle, if you forget everything else I ever said in the lifetime we shared together, I need you to remember 3 things. 1. Minimize violence done to and by women. As givers of life, it's against their nature, God's design, to do harm, and every act of violence done to them is meant to break their souls, turning what should be a giver of hope into a black widow, a woman who destroys the life and the mercy of her care for no other reason but the corruption of her own self. It is only when you come across these kinds of women that you should put them down, for they are no better than the men who tarnished them. However, take no glee in what must be done. Finding any life so far gone, a black hole is where someone's heart should be, leaves only one solution: the mercy of death, and it's a tragedy when it happens. Make no mistake, a woman's love is the most powerful thing on this earth. It can start wars, end them, and change the devil himself into someone God sees worthy of giving a second chance. She don't owe this love to anyone, but she do carry it around with her so long as she's living. That is why the devil will do everything he can to pervert women's nature and destroy their innocence. Of every crime you can commit during your lifetime, be it out of daring or necessity, for every defiance you may act out against God, government, or man, avoid harming the innocent. For the day that we become bloodthirsty beasts where love don't exist anymore is the day hell on earth has come. And as bad as it may seem at times nowadays, we ain't there yet. 2. Everything you do in your life will create consequences, both seen and unseen, extending further than you can imagine. Nothing you do exists solely within your arm's reach. Think about every decision you make, every action you take, because you won't know how long your choices will stalk you, be them destructions or blessings, rumors or history been made. The truth of the matter is, your life will be controlled not by the truth of what you've done, but by the way others carry on about you. And the thoughts of others are more real in the long term than what you know to be true. It won't stop affecting you just because it ain't real, and no matter the life you've lived, most men can't outrun what's written in them in ink. It ain't hopeless, though. Be firm in knowing who you are outside of the noise, and live beyond the means of the news of the day. 3. There ain't anything stronger than a family you build for yourself. What you put together is worth fighting for. Protect your loved ones with your life, and they'll give theirs in return. Family ain't defined by blood, understand that. And for as strong as the bonds of your family are, know that you'll find just as much passion in the people who hate you. While you'll risk your life for those you care about, those who find your existence to be an insult to theirs will risk themselves to put an end to their affliction. As cruel as it may seem, a man who hates you will stop at nothing until one of you is dead. It's a mistake to believe anything different. Don't let you be the ones taken from, be it by outlaw lawmen or by someone in between. The only one who'll be looking out for you is you and your kin. Maybe there's another way to be, but in all my years I've seen the worst of man, I ain't found another way around man's desire to conquer against all else. There ain't a changing of that mind, and sometimes I believe there ain't the ability for man to change at all, least of all through lead or legislation. I ain't claiming to be right about nothing. On many things, I don't want to be right, but what I do want is for my kids to live a better life than the one I did and avoid the mistakes that I made while finding the truth and purpose in what matter more than gold in this country. It's my hope that by sharing the things I learned that my kids will be better than their old man ever was, and that what I done isn't what people remember me for, but who y'all are going to become. That'll be the legend of Bill Cassidy.